me, the Soy Pill. I make video essays about politics, and I'll be arguing that Luigi is a hero to people worldwide for justifiable reasons. I hope we don't get too bogged down in the definitions of terrorist and hero since they're subjective. We could all agree that Saddam Hussein, Amelia Earhart, or Osama bin Laden have committed horrible acts of terrorism, and yet they're seen as heroes to many as well. I don't expect to get my opponents to say that murder is good or to condone Luigi as a hero, but my goals in this conversation are to establish that, number one, the practices of insurance companies in denying and delaying healthcare for profit are reprehensible and tantamount to robbery or even murder. Number two, most of these practices, despite being absolutely monstrous, are within the company's legal rights, and when they aren't, they're rarely ever punished to a significant degree. Number three, Brian Thompson was aware, complicit, and encouraging of these policies. Number four, many of the people suffering or dying due to these policies have no way to see justice, and Luigi provided them a voice that they've lacked for years. And finally, number five, to approach this in good faith, if my opponents can show me that these suffering people have better short-term options for justice and aid, I will concede that their lionization of Luigi is misplaced and ignorant at best, and at worst, detrimental to society.
Okay, thanks for being here. Looking forward to it. Ash, Rube, what do you got?
Hey, Ash, Gelatinous Rube, whatever you want to call me. So I would prefer Americans not kill each other over healthcare, but it's difficult to encourage a ceasefire without some means of reprisal or some kind of leverage to encourage them to stop killing us over healthcare. So if healthcare CEOs don't want to be killed, I think that Luigi has, through a bad action, given us some leverage to encourage the members of the healthcare cartel to defect a little bit. Stop pushing for actions or laws like the like the Affordable Care Act, the 80/20 rule that encourages them to stop negotiating on our behalf and instead delay, deny, defend further and further so their investments can continue to garner more profit and they can make up any kind of excess cash that's illegal by just issuing rebates to us, while several policyholders, especially people with more expensive claims, are left out in the cold. So I think that this is an unfortunate event that has given us a lot of leverage on the side of policyholders.
Okay, we'll get into it as we go. Ukerist, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short as there's a lot already said. I think one of the cool things about living together in political communities is the creation of opportunities to live together in peace. The reliable, sort of predictable ability to resolve conflict through means other than violence. Violence in a working political community is a last resort kind of mechanism, not a first impulse tool. And because of that, any use of violence typically needs to be justified. A reason for its use has to be defended. And so if you're going to defend any particular instance of violence, you want to make sure also that your principles generalize and don't lead to any funny consequences that you aren't willing to deal with. So my basic claim, I think, today is going to be political violence may be justified in certain circumstances, and this is not one of those. And I want to see the proponents make a very strong positive case. But to avoid the sort of debate, ooh, I don't have the burden because you guys are on the positive side, my negative case is basically centered around three things that I think we'll disagree on. I think we're going to disagree on whether the action was necessary, effective, or justified. And I disagree on all those. I think it's unnecessary, ineffective, and unjustified. And so importantly, I think, like, me saying that this is a bad thing that should not have happened, it does not actually require me to think that the CEO was a great guy or that the company was perfectly ethical. We can argue about the particulars of that, but I think it's going to be more important to say, even if it's a bad company, even if the CEO was unethical, does that rise to the level of justifying the action that was taken? And I'm going to suggest no. And also that even if you don't even care about questions of justice, that it's not actually going to be effective at accomplishing the political ends you want if the ends you want are some sort of healthcare reform. So,
well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Buckaroo, what do you got?
Hello. I think Luigi is a man whose face is being used as a meme to express a fundamental human experience that is regardless of class, creed, language, race. Healthcare by most developed nations is considered a human right. It's something that insurance companies use as another tool to make profit. We see racial, economic, and educational disparities reinforced by the denial ratings of these companies, only further souring the relationship between an already disenfranchised claimant and their insurance provider. We see the American opinion of health insurance reaching the lowest it has within the past 2 decades. And ultimately, many agencies utilize a strategy I have expressed using a chart I borrowed from the Soy Pill here tonight. Okay. If you can see, we've got fuck around and we've got find out. Emphasis being on the fucking around, perhaps not enough of the finding out, the methods of which I believe to be a direct result of the seeming violence, quote unquote, that they commit against the American people.
Okay, we'll get into it as we go. Last but certainly not least, Destiny, what are your thoughts here? Oh, you are muted and we cannot hear you.
Are you muted?
Sorry, I was just talking really quietly, actually. I think that the positive argument has to be provided for, obviously, because I think that the killing fails. I think in four pretty basically in every aspect. Obviously, it fails legally. Somebody earlier here literally gave the definition for terrorism, which is that this murder gives leverage for a political change, which was literally why New York State decided to use the terrorism subcharge to get it to first-degree murder, and that's the definition of it, is to try to affect some political outcome. It fails personally, like the person was not personally impacted by any of the healthcare industry in a negative way, even though people tried to say he was initially. At first, it was that his poor grandma died, and then it was that he had a bad experience, and now it comes out he's just a rich kid who had surgery, and his experiences had nothing to do with negative health insurance companies or anything like that. It fails ethically. I don't think that you can say just because this guy is the CEO of a company who's engaged in a business that you don't like, we should be able to kill anybody in management as a result of that. I think that's a little bit absurd. We can think of should I be allowed to kill the CEO or kill executives who work at gun manufacturing companies or car companies or what? It's just, especially in one of the most tightly regulated industries in the entire United States. That's, I think, an absurd claim. And then I think it fails most importantly, consequentially. There are really good conversations that we could be having about improving healthcare in the United States. Almost none of those conversations are solely centered around health insurance industries. There's a whole bunch of expensive things in U.S. healthcare, between hospitals, between doctors, between private practice, between insurance, between pharmaceutical companies. There are so many different things that are expensive in the United States. To settle all of this, at the feet of health insurance companies, I think is incredibly naive. And I think that this killing is going to result in absolutely nothing changing, because none of the conversations about any of the industry now are productive. It's just idolizing this random loser who is mentally insane and decided to kill a healthcare exec for whatever reason.
Okay. Well, I guess let's start there. Terrorist charge that the New York State's bringing on to the Luigi case. Who here thinks that that's an appropriate thing, that that's a good thing that they're doing this? Raise your hand.
Probably.
So everyone here thinks it's good that they're charging him with terrorism?
It's accurate at the very least. I said earlier, he's providing us leverage to hopefully engender some kind of ceasefire between healthcare companies and other aspects of the healthcare industry. Hospitals are involved in this as well. Hopefully to reconsider some of their policies and say, maybe we shouldn't do this.
So
if that's the definition of terrorism, then why would it be inappropriate to charge him?
If you had to rate your confidence on how likely you think it is that any hospital or insurance company or healthcare system will change its policies as a result of this, what's your confidence on that? How likely do you think this actually is?
One guy?
Yeah.
Just one? Not very confident.
Okay, yeah. So I if the likely or if the possibility of change is part of the justification for this act, I just don't I don't see the actual line here.
His line, just to be clear, he's advocating for more of it happening, is what he's saying.
Sure, yeah. So I
think
was
it's a possibility.
Ukerist, though, would you then be okay with it if it completely 100% changed the conversation?
No, but I think a lot of the people who are defending it are thinking that it will be effective, and I want them to grapple with the fact that it's not. I want them to realize that even if you think this is justified because it's effective, and I don't think it would be even if it was, that this is probably not going to be effective. In fact, I think this will probably have a backlash effect that will probably entrench some of these problems y'all are complaining about.
Well, what metric would you have to see that this was an effective policy? Would the healthcare system need to change significantly? Would one company need to change their policies? Would we need single payer? What would convince you that this itself was the driving force? Because it's a little soon to say. It hasn't even been a month. So this could completely change something by the next midterm. It could completely change the conversation 4 years from now, like who knows? But
Oh, dude, nobody even remembers the Burnell dude that set himself on fire for Gaza. Why would we expect that we're going to remember this like months from now?
Well, I'm actually glad you brought that up because I thought it was actually the difference between these two things is one is this guy could have gone and burned himself, self-immolated in front of the United Healthcare building. And yeah, you're right. We probably would have forgotten about him. But because this was so egregious and blatant, everyone is talking about this. Like this has completely changed the conversation. None of us would be here today if he hadn't done that. I actually have a stat for you specifically, Destiny. If you had to guess, last year before the shooting, you made 305 videos on YouTube. How many of them discussed healthcare specifically?
2 maybe? I don't know. Probably not many.
That's actually, yeah, conservatively 2. And that's
Okay.
if you're talking about like, Eastern medicine, maybe one is like anti-vax. Whereas now at least 2 since the shooting has happened. I know this conversation will probably be uploaded. You had your debate with Vegan Gains. So, that's an 11,000% increase in healthcare videos. And you have a very wide audience. That's really
Yeah, but
changing
how
the
many other
conversation.
people are having like productive conversations about healthcare?
I don't know. You can like turn on every single news station. They're all talking about this.
Yeah, productive.
I-
No, they're just talking about Luigi, the fact that he shot somebody. But I don't even think we're talking about it much anymore. We've kind of moved on. We're in the next part of the news cycle. We're waiting for Trump to come into office. Like,
I have no way to check this or prove this, but a similar question back at you three. How many of you before this news cycle could have confidently named Brian Thompson as the CEO of this company? Did you know him by name or sight or face? Okay. Right. So one of the issues I've had with this whole like sort of grave dancing in the aftermath of the Luigi incident is like I could maybe be perfectly okay with seeing people do the kind of grave dancing where I've seen some of these anecdotes. Specifically, people are like, yeah, I was insured by United and they denied my claim for this. Screw that guy in particular. I'm really pissed about it. I've been following, the lawsuit against him for his insider trading and all of this, and I hated him and his guts, and I'm glad this happened. Those people, fine, whatever. But most people had no idea who this guy was, had no idea what was going on in this company, probably couldn't have told you anything about any of these stats beforehand. Maybe you're right, Soy Pill, that like that's a good thing now that we're talking about it. But I do think that there's something really weird about just being like, yes, this guy in particular was so evil and so bad that I think a random person, rich guy who was not affected by his actions, gunning him down in the street is justified and thumbs up and okay. And I'm going to celebrate it, even though 2 weeks ago I couldn't have told you anything about him.
I
Isn't there a pretty
personally
obvious
do
reason for
agree.
that, though?
Just one at a time. Let's go to Buckaroo and then let's go to.
I do agree there is a massive, like a lot of people didn't really know who he was, but I think that is just relaying a serious issue within health insurance agencies as a whole and with healthcare, with how healthcare is provided to an individual patient or in this case claimant. I think the distance that is put between the individual patient and the care that they're provided actively perpetuates this this dehumanization that goes both ways. We complain a lot about how we are seen as numbers on a chart, and so is Brian Thompson in this case. So I actually think your argument goes to it goes to express a greater issue that I think is perpetuated by insurance companies as a whole. And I do think Brian Thompson.
Would this mean that you're like super against single payer then, since probably the government sees you as a number more than any other, like that would be the largest organization in the entire country that could.
I personally prefer something more like a 2-tier system at least, but I also, looking at like Nordic models, for example, you see a lot of more localized government control over the individual like healthcare being provided, and then the greater government is just helping facilitate that.
Wait, in Sweden and Norway, they don't have federal level payment?
They do, but they offer a lot of allowance to the individual counties as to the way they facilitate it.
Okay. I still don't see how like having like a county level thing is like at the end of the day, I feel like the only thing that matters is you interfacing personally with your doctor, not knowing where the guy who authorizes your treatments lives.
Well, the difference is in one of these countries, the non-profit healthcare system is incentivized to get the best care for the people and not to make money. And the CEO is part of those decisions that go down and say, hey, let's see how we can make more money. How can we deny claims? How can we make the most profit for our company?
Well, how do they make money in the United States?
It depends. They have like 2/3 of their investments are in bonds. If they have a loss adjusted ratio that's lower than 100%, then they're paying out less than they're getting in. But it depends.
Well, so
Usually
that
it's
2/3, I
investment.
don't know where that. So the vast majority of the money comes from premiums that they're paid. right? And they have to pay out at least 80% of that in healthcare costs.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they making money? Like, couldn't you argue that the U.S. healthcare system is incentivized to make money by charging people for things? So, like going to the hospital and delivering levels of care that you know are going to be effective, or like would people buy a drug if they knew that it wouldn't work, or would people go to the hospital if they knew that it wouldn't work? Or
I'm not sure I'm following. Could you?
You're saying that they're incentivized to profit. Well, how does a company make profit? By selling a good or service. We think that healthcare is probably important, so we consume that good or
By
service.
selling a good or service, or denying people claims. So saying, I mean, you can look at any of these examples. I'll just bring up a bunch. But do you know what a MIST is? Like a minor impact soft tissue.
No.
So there's a specific strategy for missed claims where they say, look, the payouts for these are incredibly minor, and they're also very hard to prove because you don't get x-rays or specific medical diagnoses that are super, super obvious. So it's more profitable to us to just say no to all of these and hope that the vast majority of the people don't fight it. The ones that do fight it realize that the litigation is going to cost more than the payout ever would be, and then they make more money off that and are not providing the promised care to the people that they're supposed to. So
Wait, so you're telling me there are health insurers where it explicitly says that they cover things like these minor impact soft tissue injuries, and then but they actually don't cover any of them? Can you give me an example of a company that does that I can look up?
Yeah, look up Allstate.
Wait, for health insurance, or is this for car insurance?
This is for car insurance.
Okay, we're not talking about car insurance. We're talking about health insurance. I think it's a different type of thing, right?
Okay, so then we could look at the recent report that came out from the permanent subcommittee on investigations, where this is, you've talked about this on stream, the AI denials of people getting post-acute healthcare. This post-acute healthcare, for those of you who don't know, means when you get a procedure, let's say some sort of surgery, or you need something and you need that care afterwards, they have this system that determines whether or not you need it. That system might be based on a couple of factors. It ranks all these points, and if you're over a certain threshold, they just deny you that care. People who are denied care either have to pay out of pocket, go through litigation, or forgo that care entirely. And the consequences of forgoing that care are either your condition worsens, it becomes permanent, or you die. So what about that? That's healthcare. That's literally specific.
I don't know where so I don't know, real quick, that 90% number, the only place I've ever been able to find that before, that wasn't from any House subcommittee or whatever. That was from a lawsuit.
Let's say it's 1%. It doesn't matter. The point is that people are dying because of this.
Well, the point is do we think that every single denial is bad?
No, there are tons of denials that are fine. Fraud is the second biggest white collar crime of all time. People like to commit insurance fraud, and we should have checks for that. But that doesn't mean that most of these denials are okay.
Hold on, just real quick. This is to you, Soy, and to your side. Wouldn't it matter how much of this is happening? We can recognize in any system there's going to be failures, there's going to be fraud, as you said, there's going to be bad actors. Like, how many people have to have died for what Luigi did to be justified?
I'd say he's a hero to whoever of the people who had family or friends die, regardless if that's one person, 1,000 people, 40,000 people, whatever the number is. Obviously, there's probably a more reasonable threshold. It's not one, it's probably hundreds, if not thousands. The point is that these systems being used are based on whistleblower testimony, not adequate to what adjusters would normally do to give people the proper payouts.
I will also note, sorry, thank you. I will also note we do see that there are nearly 17% of in-network claims that are denied, at least in 2021. And 77% of all of those were just listed as other reasons. There wasn't even a clear outline as to why they were being denied, as to whether it had to do with their specific policy or if they filled out the forms wrong, which is part of the denial rating as well.
So wait, hold on, real quick on that. If somebody filled out a form wrong, wouldn't that be a good reason to deny somebody?
I believe that if a company is being, promoting themselves as offering some concept of safety to their customers, I think that is something that they should be held to, whether or not there is like one line in a policy, buried in pages upon pages that maybe exempts them from a small amount of coverage.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, some of these, you filled this out wrong, are tantamount to the voter, tests that they used to have for Black people in the 1800s.
I'm sorry, I'm going to need an example of that, where you're filling out a convoluted test, and then that is the incorrect form. And that's how
you
they're
can
denying
look
it.
It
at
is
the
also-
amount of paperwork for any of these cases, and they're specific on policy records. I believe McKinsey documents have promoted this. Or if you don't want to go back to auto insurance, we can just talk about the fact that these companies do share practices. It's like one of the only like antitrust laws they can get around is to make the documentation more complicated and more difficult to fill out, and to delay those claims as long as possible for whatever reason you can. So they already delay them when they know they're justified in paying them out for if someone had an alibi, if they thought they might have committed like arson fraud, if someone had some sort of, I don't know, like a health issue where they produced all of the medical documents necessary to show that they actually do have that condition and they do need that care. Already at that point, they are denying those claims just to prolong and fight and make that litigation cost those people more, to take that money and to invest that float for extra interest in the long term.
They don't make
that's already
money.
at the
So just
extreme.
real quick, they don't make money on these filings are public where they make the money. They don't make a lot of money on investments. That's just not the case. There's because the money that comes in and out of these companies is like moving so quickly. They don't invest a ton of this money and make a ton of profit this way.
Yeah, but
Number
that is
one.
how they get rid of that's how they get around the fact that their ratio of payouts to claims can be over 100%. That's the only way they can make profit otherwise.
Okay, so there's like
That's not
I will
true.
also note. I will also note the NICA or
finish your point.
NAIC, the National.
No, finish your point, then Ukerist. Finish your point, then Ukerist. I'm just trying to. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
The National Association of Insurance Commissioners. Sorry, I have my notes down here. That's why I'm reading. They actually have a model of it's Model Unfair Claims Settlement Practices Act, and under it, it actually lists a bunch of different unfair practices that are utilized by insurance agencies, and that it includes not attempting in good faith to effectuate prompt, fair, and equitable settlement of claims submitted in which liability has become reasonably clear. And this is one of, I believe, 15 different unfair practices that are utilized by insurance companies that actively go against this. This
And
Unfair Claims
Buckaroo,
Act.
I will add that
Just
they
real
will
quick.
only punish you if they can establish that's a commonplace business practice. If you do it once or twice, they will not punish you for that.
Ukerist, go ahead.
Yeah, there's like multiple levels here that are difficult, because one of the things we're dealing with is when we look up like how often do insurance companies deny these claims. The numbers for that are not always good or useful.
They're not
we don't-
available, actually. They're
Exactly,
kept
right. So when we get numbers, they're from publicly available databases or reporting and things like this that don't come directly from the company, right? So that's maybe a problem. But they're
Can I pause
also
you there, Professor, because it's
Well,
not
let's just
Well,
let you gotta let Ukerist
okay,
finish his point. Go
I'll
ahead.
write it down. Sorry, go ahead.
they're also only tangentially useful sometimes, because some of those numbers include things like denial for pre-authorization, failure to file pre-authorization requests, and those typically get hashed out between insurer and hospital, not at the patient level. So usually, like if you get something in the mail that says your claim was denied because there was no pre-authorization request, you will sometimes see something at the bottom that says something like patient is not liable for blah blah blah, because that's something that gets hashed out. The hospital should have asked the insurance before they did it. They didn't, and then they hash it out, right? So that gets included in that bucket of denials. And so if what we're just concerned about is like percentage of denied claims and how many of those are claims that should have been approved, what we're saying is we're looking for the percentage of denied claims that are actually fraudulent, which is we are contracted to cover this. You have shown that this should be covered, and we're not going to pay it anyway. And so that's what we're looking for within that big number, and it's hard to find. And because, as you said, the numbers are not available. That is another issue, right? Because go ahead. Yeah, you can go on.
Well, I want to jump in on that. It's like the reason the numbers are not available is because these insurance companies lobby to make sure that they do not have to publish them.
Sure.
The only
You know
place they
who
have to
else
give
is
them
lobbying
is-
to make sure they don't have to publish them, though, is labor unions. There's an article I'll send you guys later if you want. ProPublica has done a
Well, then-
series of essays on this.
But the
Like,
point is that the NAIC is the only people that get this. They report it to them privately. They're not even a governmental institution. You can get accounts from the people who work at this place, and they say that like you said, the data is overlapping. It's ambiguous. They don't all use the same reporting standards. And finally, there are companies that do transparently release this data. One actually that I know of called Chubb, and it's the most transparent, and it's lets the best consumer to insurer relationship. It costs a little more, but is completely possible for all of these people to release all of their data.
All of this
It
is hold on just real quick. All of this is nice, good, interesting information. It's connected to the topic at hand, but the topic at hand is let's just cede all of that ground, right? The health insurance companies are bad. They do bad things. Is it okay?
Well, no, you can't cede the ground because this is literally where the conversation is and where it needs to happen. Because if it is the case, because the problem is that on one end, you've got this caricaturized version of health insurers who are just like, the only way we can make money is by denying everybody all their claims all the time. And we do it maliciously and evilly and we whatever. Like that's on one end. And then on the other end, it's like, okay, well, you've got businesses that function in like the most heavily regulated environment, probably of all U.S. businesses, probably in all industry in the United States. And denials happen, like even Medicare and Medicaid have double-digit denial rates, and like this is just part of operating in this industry. So like if we're all, I think, because I imagine even Ukerist, I imagine you would agree that if it was the case that health insurance companies were just arbitrarily, maliciously, and evilly denying people claims for literally no reason, but just to watch people die and make more money, in that case, fuck, if a guy gets whacked or whatever, I don't know, maybe.
Who's claiming
Well, no,
that they're doing it to watch
I would
them
want to
die?
argue even in that case that they're like, you should be prosecuting for the fraud that's happening, right? Which was exactly what was happening with the lawsuit against Brian and other people for insider trading, right? That to the extent that UHC is actually committing fraud on the level you guys are alleging, there are legal
but that's
avenues
fraud
that you
against
can
other
pursue.
rich people. That's like if you look at any CEO that's ever been prosecuted for any of these things, at least what I could find, 9/10 of like every single article is all, oh, you were defrauding investors, and the one person who ever actually went to jail, I don't have it right in front of me. Let's see right here. Yeah, Kothari and McMenamin, who just like were so egregiously lying about their claims, making up numbers completely, that it was prosecuted. Everything else is the status quo, and that's kind of the point, is that you can deny all these claims. You can implement these computer systems that group people and segment them into these groups that don't make sense on an individual one-to-one basis, and it's not illegal. It's not considered immoral. I mean, we have two people right now arguing that it's totally okay. In the meantime, these people are just dying. And I'm not saying, Destiny, you mentioned...
This doesn't happen. You're lying when you say, hold on, what percentage of insurance denials are just like denying people necessary care and then they die? If you had to guess, like, what do you feel like that is?
Don't know. They don't release the numbers.
Well, no, guess, but you have a strong enough feeling you think a CEO should die over it. So tell me what you think in your head. Like, what's your intuition? Like, what do you think it's around?
Let me be clear. I don't actually necessarily even support the murder. I don't know if I want to live in a world where the way that
but I still want to know intuitively, what do you think is like the amount of arbitrary bullshit denials and then people are like dying or having severely horrible adverse outcomes for denials that are just
What number would I have to say for you to change your mind?
I mean, I think any number is not necessarily good, and I think we should probably seek to reform the industry. But like in my mind, this number is probably like, I would say easily less than 10%, probably less than 5% in terms of like probably less than 1%. But it feels like in your guys'
where's
mind,
that coming from? Because I have no idea. I'm not going to say it.
The fact that it's like the most heavily regulated industry in the United States.
When you say it's the most heavily regulated?
As in, there's a fuck ton of like paperwork. There's a fuck ton of information that's required to be like, for instance, somebody said earlier that claims are rejected for no reason. That's not even possible. Under the ACA, you literally have to. You have to provide a reason for rejecting a claim. It's a requirement.
To be clear, that the claim was all other reasons. I don't think you can give that.
I don't think you can reject before. I don't think you can just reject for no reason for all reasons. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm not saying for no reason. I'm saying for all other reasons. I think it's just, at least in the data that was being sourced.
Hold on. Other than fraud, just maybe this will help.
It was used.
Buckaroo. Other than fraud, what do you think would be a legitimate reason for a health insurance company to deny a claim? What would give me an example of what you would think would be a legitimate, non-fraudulent reason where the healthcare insurance provider can and should say, we're not covering that?
I think if somebody's trying to jump the gun on treatment options, for example, they want to skip over like all of the preventative options and go straight to the most extreme option that also happens to be more expensive because it's utilizing more expensive technology, I would say that's worth denying, because I think people should be trying to take an exhaustive approach, or at least like attempting some sort of approach to preventative care before seeking out the most expensive options. I think a lot of elective surgeries, whether or not I agree with all the classifications of elective surgeries, I think there are a lot of elective surgeries that are just fine to be denied because, I don't think everybody needs to have a nose job. Not everybody needs to have, elective surgeries. I mean, I could go down a list of them, but
wait, just as a real quick audience thing. So an elective surgery is just something that's not life-threatening. It's not always a cosmetic surgery. So, for instance, if you have like a bone that's like broken or didn't heal right, or it's kind of like fucked, but it's not like threatening your life, you can schedule that surgery in advance. That's not like a cosmetic surgery, but that could be like an elective surgery. Assuming it's not like a life.
This is a part of why I'm talking about surgeries that are talking about options that are not taking an exhaustive effort to their like preventative care and to appropriate care at first, because what they actually need is a what they actually need is a cast first, but they're refusing a cast and they want to have the surgery instead. I think there are a lot of different circumstances in which
Okay.
there are surgeries that may or may not be covered for good reason.
Eucharist.
Eucharist?
Yeah, can I
You
ask
look like you have a thought.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I guess my question for you all, related to what Destiny said, is like, well, I imagine if we all agree, if there is this amount of thing happening, well, probably good that this guy got capped or whatever. I guess I'm wondering what the threshold is for you guys. Like, what level of harm or fraud you think justifies these things? And so, this is for all of you, but for Soy Pill specifically, I did watch your video on this, and you had the section where you bring up Hannah Arendt's Eichmann in Jerusalem. Very interesting section. And one thing that I quoted, I'm hoping I'm quoting it correctly, you bring up this thing that she's talking about effectively, which is that there were thousands of office workers within the Third Reich who were completely removed from any death or killing and were just as responsible for making those deaths happen. And your summary basically is sometimes evil is just a pencil-pushing nerd. And I'm just wondering, first, what is the threshold of evil enough that we think somebody should be, hauled in front of a trial and executed or potentially extrajudicially executed on the street? And then who in this system of banal evil is eligible for extrajudicial assassination now, if I accept your premise that lots of evil is pencil-pushing nerds in this healthcare system that we all agree is very extensive, right? It's hospitals, it's insurers, it's the government, it's everybody. So which of these people can I just cap if I want to, right?
Okay,
do you guys know the names of other C-suite executives at United? Do you know who the new CEO is?
No, they took them all down, so we can't. But
do you want to like which of these people, right?
Right. So first of all, I want to clarify. I don't necessarily want to live in a world where the only way to get change is to cap people in the back of the head. I still have some hope that there is a way to work within the system. I'm just saying that the people who do view this man as a hero do not feel as if they can live to see that change, or do not believe that change is possible. So just to get that out of the way, that's my position. Second of all, when you are in a position of power, whether or not you are on the internal committee that is deciding whether or not to use these systems that are arbitrarily denying people, and like I said, I think Destiny, you mentioned like, oh, they're these evil healthcare companies, they're wringing their hands. Like, I don't believe necessarily that they're viewing it that way as this like, oh yeah, how many people can we kill today? It's a matter of turning people into numbers and disassociating from the humanity of those people, right? So
this is what every single system necessarily has to do, right? Why do you say that? Like turning people into numbers. The government would have to do this as well.
It doesn't, because other insurance companies have the responsibility to give out the money that they promise their people, and they just do it, and they make less money, and it's not for profit, and that's how nonprofits work.
Yeah, but the government would have to run under a certain budget as well. They might not be paying out profits, but they're going to be given a budget by the government that they have to come in under, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I have a different argument that's relying on the incentive structure on how these people are treated, not necessarily that they're being treated as numbers or.
Can I make my last point, Ash, and then let you join in? Because he asked me like, at what point can I kill someone? And if you look at the agents, the adjusters, and their incentives in this structure, yeah, there's cash for making the company perform well and have better profits incentives. They are specifically quotes. I could get a quote here. I don't have it off the top of my head, but essentially people are fired for not adhering to the system. So if the like Colossus system, that's one of the computer systems they use, says, hey, you should deny this person care. They review it and say, I actually don't think this deserves a denial. They could be fired for that. So I don't think those people are nearly as responsible. They're not the ones making the decisions. They're not the ones implementing these systems, and they're fully aware. Brian Thompson is someone who worked his way up through the company, saw the top to bottom structure, and then got to the point where he could make change. He could say, hey, I don't think these systems are good. I think we're denying too many people care. I think that we should be more responsible to the people that deserve payouts, and he didn't. So he is like definitely at least above the threshold. Again, I don't necessarily mean he deserves to die, but I consider him much more responsible. Sorry, Ash.
Just a quick thing. When you say that people are being denied based on some system or some AI or whatever, what do you think it's using to deny those people? What do you think it's weighing there generally?
It's a ton of things. I mean, for example, again, if you keep jumping on this because it's car insurance, this is just the one I know off the top of my head.
No. Car insurance doesn't count because car insurance is not anywhere near as heavily regulated as medical insurance. It's a much different thing.
Okay, so then I don't know the specifics of any of the ones except the Colossus system, which I know is flags and it's based on car insurance. So what are the other ones, if you know?
Although it is relating to health insurance, to be clear, it is still the insurance industry as it relates to the health of the individual claimant that is pursuing some sort of medical care or some sort of reimbursement for their medical care.
Buckaroo, do you think that an auto insurance guy bears responsibility for someone gets in an accident, they get injured because of that accident, the auto insurance guys don't pay the repair bill for whatever reason. Do you think they
Well,
should
I'm
be
still talking
capped?
about how it relates to health insurance, to be clear. I'm not talking about the repair bill for the car. I'm talking about the health insurance, the insurance that relates to the health of the claimants that may or may not have been injured in the accident in the first
Yeah,
place.
and the car insurance has to pay out for auto injuries, so it's still part of their health. And if they delay or deny claims on, I don't know, whiplash, which is the minor impact surgical tissue or whatever it is, soft tissue, that can make your, like, if you don't get that repaired in the 3-month window, that can make your condition permanent
So
or
are they
worsen. So
again? Are they on the chopping block, or are they on the wanted posters? The auto
I am
insurance guys?
actually glad you asked this, because I did want to put in my 2 cents as well. I think almost anybody participating in the medical and insurance industry could bear maybe like 1 penny of claim.
What about the
I
lawyers
think
defending those?
But this is
companies?
why I think there is like a fundamental issue with the insurance companies and with the system of healthcare that we have in the United States, and why I believe that more individualized care and more direct interactions between
What about
providers
what about the
and
lawyers
the
for these
people
insurance
buying.
companies?
I'm
Are
sure
they
everybody on
the
this
Yes,
block could
like I said,
agree that
no,
if
this is what I
somebody
mean,
is
though.
Hold
I
on.
think
No,
everybody
stop.
should
Everyone
go-
stop. Everyone stop, because I'm trying to get just some clear answers. So the auto insurance, they're on the hook. The lawyers for these insurance companies, they're on the hook. What about reporters and things who paint insurance companies in a positive light? Are they on the hook?
I mean, again, I don't even know if I agree with the statement "on the hook," because I think this is a system that is perpetuated by almost every single person who participates within it. I don't think there's one person that you could say, this is the one person that if he's gone, then everything's perfectly resolved. Which is also why I presented my my issue with the whole conversation in the first place, as a result of the treatment of claimants in the of treatments of claimants. I think I think it's less just a conversation about justification, but more about cause and effect. If there are people who feel like they've been wronged at such an extreme level, I think they're going to have some sort of negative reaction. And after about 3 decades of the implementation of delay, deny, defend, as proposed by the McKinsey and Company, the consulting company that a lot of these insurance agencies specifically sought out, I think that is a huge part of what's perpetuated these issues now. And I think a great way to resolve it would be to reform the whole system.
Okay. Ash, you've been trying to get in. Sorry.
Just briefly, I'm sure that we could all agree that if somebody is engaged in fraud, then whatever the punishment we decide is appropriate for that person, it's going to be based on proximity to their responsibility for the fraud. United Health Group employs something like 440,000 people. I'm sure that we could agree that if somebody is closer than not, or has more power making, decision making power within the company, Brian Thompson is. Would you disagree that he's within the top 1,000 of those 440,000?
He's
I mean, it
certainly more
depends.
influential than the
Would it be
person.
unreasonable to say the top 100 or even maybe the
No,
top
wait,
20?
wait.
Who would you kill if you were
Wait. It depends on what you mean by like decision making process. So like the like a manager or a chief executive officer might be making more broad level decisions in a company, but they might be further removed from like an individual making a fraudulent decision. Let's say you literally have a store called like Morals Are Us, and it's the most moral CEO ever, and then you've got like a frontline employee who like intentionally swaps medications for people at the pharmacy just to watch them die. We wouldn't say that the CEO is responsible for that individual's criminal act as contrary to the law and company policy, right?
And in the same
what
sense,
about
going back to the
promoting
Eichmann and Jerusalem situation, right? We just recently hauled another Nazi prison guard before a court who has managed to outlive his years, right? He was like a 17-year-old Nazi prison guard, right? We prosecuted people who were at the lowest rungs of this, just implementing what their superiors said. That's the point of the whole Eichmann comparison, right?
Well,
so,
no, the
so I
difference
don't know
being
if
that
I
that
can
guy
accuse the
watched
person
and
on the
maybe
phone
killed
who's just
Jews
applying
versus
the algorithm, right? If the algorithm is so evil and it's defrauding people at this grand scale, the person who's on the phone saying, "Yeah, man, your claim was denied. I can't do anything about about it? I check the box and it spit out the output. What can I do about it, man? Like, is that person any less complicit in the scheme you guys are developing? I'm not sure. Like,
Well, yeah, because their
I would
livelihood
say
is on
that
the
they are
line in
obviously
terms of
less
changing it.
complicit.
Like they will literally.
so was the
be
Nazi
fired.
prison guard. Like, I don't see the distinction.
They were just following
and I'd say a
orders.
Nazi prison guard is just as responsible, and we'd
To be
either
clear, I
have to
don't have an
desert or do
argument
something
based on
else.
the Nazi prison guard. I'm just going based off of modern.
I don't have
examples,
Nazis in
modern
any
law.
of my arguments. To be clear, at no point did I study Nazis for this.
Well, I'm
this discussion.
implicating you in Soy Pill's argument. Okay, he put a video on the internet. You're on his side in this debate, and you get
Use
it
my
all.
graph.
Okay.
You got to do it.
No, I'm innocent. I swear.
No, I
That's what the
guess
Nazis
I
said.
still have not heard like a very convincing like here's why I can't kill a mid-level manager at UHC. Okay, wait, another question I have then on this same line, right?
Can I invoke a
I
Nazi
personally
argument?
just
Actually,
think you
Professor? Because you want to talk about Nazis. Do you know?
Sure,
that,
go ahead and invoke the Nazi argument, and then I have
do you know
a question.
that?
I'll save.
Well,
Yes,
yeah.
please.
Sorry to interrupt, but do you know the indie movie Schindler's List?
Yeah.
You know how Oscar Schindler probably couldn't overthrow the entire Nazis, but had plenty of options as the head of a company to save people, to defy them, to subvert them at every possible moment without actually dying, and he did that.
Sure. Yeah.
So, do you think that Brian Thompson could have done that?
No,
No.
no,
Why not?
because you can't even list a single way in which he could have. One, he's not even the
he-
person that shot calling at the end of the day in terms of like what the company's doing, right? It's like he would just be fired as CEO.
You don't think a CEO has any influence in the company? I'm aware
to
that
drive the company to
there's
the
a
ground, he
board
would just be fired, right? What do you mean?
What? No, I'm just saying that a CEO has influence over what the company does. If he's promoting the AI system, I mean, you can tell me that he was just like a pretty face to promote that system. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he was.
Yeah, but hold on.
probably doing
When
it
you
because
say
he
AI
knows what that system
system,
does.
so we're all young. None of us are 75 years old here. Okay, I don't think AI needs to be like the scary word that makes something automatically
Okay,
bad.
well then say the
So
computer
just saying,
system. They've been using them for
Sure.
30 years, and they've been
Yes.
overly denying people. We have quotes from
Overly
people in
denying-
the industry.
overly
We have
denying
quotes
compared to
from
what?
people in the industry that they are not fair to the standard of what a normal adjuster would say. These are from people in the industry are saying this. So if they know,
and why
that
not
it's
some more of
almost
those
always-
set of things about car insurance? Again, this is all built on the idea that like these companies are maliciously and evilly just denying people.
It's not malicious.
claims for no reason.
Well, first of all, you could say it's malicious, but I'm just saying that they're using these systems under the guise of, hey, we want to reduce our administrative costs. But you can look and they know in this Senate report that literally came out 2 months ago, they see that the costs that they're saving on their administrative costs are like $2 million. The cost that they're saving because of denials from the system they're using is like in the 10 times magnitude, 100 times magnitude of that.
Do you
That
think
doesn't
that
even make
no
sense.
one-
Wait. That doesn't even make sense because if they decrease their administrative costs, they would have to pay back premiums to their customers. Because if your administrative costs get too low, you have to pay out 80% of all of your premiums as healthcare costs. So if you were to reduce your administrative costs too much, and then that would to decrease, and you were like making more money than you were supposed to, you have to pay the premiums back. Companies have done this before. You can't just hoard premiums from customers. You have to pay this out to people.
And they do pay out a certain amount of claims. This is not about them denying literally every single claim, but that they are denying what I believe and what Soy Pill believes. And I just remember that Ash had something to say after this.
Also holding his hand. And Professor would ask a question.
They are still denying what I believe to be in a wrongfully high percentage of claims.
High percentage of what? Like, what
they're
kind
not
of
doing
claims? How do we even know that? How are we even quantifying
we
that?
can't say wrongfully high because they won't release the data.
So then, how can you just
so advocate
somebody?
under the?
I just have a part of my issue.
Whew, easy.
Yes, I would agree with that. I also just have
Less
issues
murder,
with
more data. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, also, I will note I'm not in support of murdering. I think choosing other
We're all
options
on-
is usually the
we're all on
best
YouTube
choice. I
here.
think murder
Okay.
is bad. But I do think it happens.
We have to do a
nonetheless.
little throat clearing, but we all get what you're trying to say. Let's give it to Ash. Ash had some things to say, and he's been trying to get in. Go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, these rebates are the means by which these companies make up for their administrative costs. Because they have to file at the end of the year, sorry, not the end of the year. I think their fiscal year, whatever, is July 31st is their filing deadline. Though if they file by, I believe it's September 15th, it's still considered on time. If you were to, let's say, hypothetically, deny or just delay claims by denying them, let them go through arbitration, whatever, you kick them back and forth and back and forth, and eventually towards the end of the year, you find that, hey, some of these claims actually, if we pay these out, we're going to get a lot closer to our proper ratio of administrative costs. We might be a little bit over the line, but we can issue those as rebates, and by rebates here, we're looking at $54 checks to every single customer within their group of policyholders, right? Basically to every single customer of that company. That still
That's an
leaves a
interesting
lot of
hypothesis, but then we should be able to do a very easy study and show, are you more likely to have a claim denied in the beginning or end of the year? We should be able to see that. Like that would show up very easily,
How
right?
would we do that? Wait, how would we do that? How
You could
easily
survey
would we do that?
customers,
Sorry,
you
can
could
you
survey
just-
hospitals, you could survey, what do you mean? There's a million ways you can measure that. When did you have a healthcare claim denied? Yes or no? And you say
Yeah, but
yes.
what
When did you
correlation
file
are you looking for?
Well, if you're saying that people are going to deny claims at the beginning of the year and then wait until the end of the year to decide whether or not they're going to accept it or something, no, like
Did I make that argument that all claims are going to be denied at the beginning of the year?
you made it
And
sound
then
like
at
they
the
would
end of
wait
the year-
until you made it sound like they would wait until the end of the year to determine whether or not they wanted to accept or reject some percentage of claims.
No, that would be patently absurd. You would pay as you go, and you would have a ratio that gets you closer and closer to that 80% ratio, but not too much over that, because then you've basically screwed yourself out of some administrative costs that you can manage. And then on top of that, you have unfulfilled claims at the end of the year because they're being arbitrated or being denied by automated systems or by systems that you've set up previously. And then you're over.
I mean,
It's
just-
operating under Price is Right rules, where you want to get as high as possible, but not too high, not over.
Sure, but I mean, this is going to be done on a rolling month. Why would you have to wait till the end of the year for that? You just like check month to month to see how your like administrative cost to premiums are, right?
So if you're doing it month to month, are you going to go over every single month?
You're probably going to try to stay right within where you need to be every single month.
I would think that you would go a little bit lower if you have an easy out provided to you by the government that lets you hit that 80% ratio exactly on the dime.
Yeah,
the
but that's
week
because you're
before filing.
assuming, yes, but this is getting back to the other question. You're assuming then at the end of the year that they would just arbitrarily deny things for no reason just to maintain some like thing, and nobody's
I don't have to
demonstrated
assume
that.
that at all. We know that denials happen all throughout the year. We know that some percentage of these denials stay denied because people just don't go through the administrative hassle or stress of arguing back and forth with their insurance company that, yes, I actually do need this surgery. I was in a car accident. This is covered. I would like, yes, something is wrong with my spine. 20 doctors have confirmed it. Sure, I'll go see your doctor 2.5 hours away if I must.
And I do think that goes again once again back to the.
Well, then it sounds like, just real quick, it sounds like your issue, it sounds like
75% at the end of the fiscal year, and for them to have a means to make up that remaining 5% at the end of the year.
Yeah, so the one example you just gave was somebody seeing 20 out-of-network doctors who are going to an in-network doctor, then pay for different insurance. Or
I never said out-of-network doctor. That's just something that you made up.
What do you mean
most
by go
insurance,
see
most
your
insurance
doctor?
is provided by employers, to be clear. So you can't always just buy different insurance. It would include going to a different employer that buys different insurance packages and then offers you insurance.
No,
from
I'm just
different
talking about
providers in
like
the
you get a
first
physical
place.
exam from several different doctors, and your treatment, which is a surgery, gets denied.
Why would you get a physical exam from several different doctors, and then if they recommended a treatment that you
How about if the
needed,
insurance company requests it from you because that's their condition for the denial or the adjudication or arbitration of this denial to proceed to the next step?
and then after the 20 that they requested, then you have to go to the one other one that they
That
wanted
would
you
be
to see the
pretty
first.
fucking absurd, and it's why an insurance company lost in a lawsuit describing this exact situation, which is why people are pissed off, by the way. You don't actually need to have a 10% death
So
rate
because
among healthcare companies for this to be a
somebody
problem.
got sued once for an issue, that means that it's an industry-wide norm. Like I can show you, I can also show you. Hold on, I'm curious. Will you acknowledge that there are patients that scam doctors and insurance companies for medication?
100%, and hospitals, by the way.
And there are hospitals that scam patients as well, and there are doctors that scam hospitals by overcharging
the
overbilling. Right?
anesthesia problem.
Okay, yeah, but we wouldn't say that. But we wouldn't say that all of these systems are corrupt because sometimes people scam people, right?
I didn't argue that at all. I just said that they had a financial incentive to act poorly because they have a get out of jail free card at the end of the year provided to them by the government.
I don't think you can defraud somebody of their insurance, and as long as you hit that 80-20 ratio, you get out of jail free. You still have to give a reason why you deny people their claims. You have to give a reason for it. It's part of the law.
Sure, absolutely. And the hassle.
Could you explain what are the different
those denials being dropped? If you want to say that's not true, that's fine. If you want to say like, hey, I don't think that this is a widespread problem. There's actually nothing going wrong here at all. That's totally fine. Just live with it is an acceptable answer. The problem is this shooting is a referendum on just live with it. I think
No,
that
it's
normal
not. It's a
people have figured out
crazy,
the
random,
reply.
rich loser guy who had no negative experiences with unaffordability of healthcare, unattainability of healthcare, who just wanted to kill somebody to get famous. That's all he's
I don't
doing.
think
That's all
those
he's
are
done.
mutually exclusive at all. The
Do
leverage
you
is
think
here.
that's why he killed him, to get famous?
Yeah, of course. What do you mean? What do you think his reason was?
I don't know. Did you read the
to
book
Leon
that he
Morel.
read? Yeah, I like. Did
To
you
read
think
the
he
book
wrote?
that he read. He did write a manifesto. I mean,
Yeah, he
did
wrote a manifesto.
say why
He
he
wrote-
did it, right?
He tried to remain anonymous. Like he didn't. Like they caught him. It wasn't like, hey, look at me, everybody. Like, where's that coming from?
The guy that wrote the manifesto tried
It
to remain
wasn't
anonymous?
released until they captured him. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's be clear, my argument doesn't believe on that. I don't think that those are mutually exclusive at all. He's definitely a weird, crazed weirdo. That
Well, if you read
wants
and if you
fame.
oh, go ahead.
I far prefer Ash's way of thinking about this in terms of incentive structures. I think it is perfectly reasonable to think, hey, there's a system here that might incentivize certain insurance companies to sometimes deny claims that they should otherwise pay out, assuming that even if the person appeals it, they will have to pay it out because they just expect the person not to appeal it. This definitely happens in car insurance. It's probably happens in health insurance. This is part of the ProPublica reporting. It's a good series. You guys should read it. It's convoluted and hard to appeal denials of health insurance. Sure, that probably happens. There's probably an incentive there.
It's
that
not
happens
probably.
sometimes.
This is there have been McKinsey documents released that prove this. This is their official strategy.
My question is,
sorry.
even if I concede that, I'm still not sure which parts of this are relevant to who gets the Luigi treatment, right? So you also have brought up institutions treating people as numbers that lead to harm or death. What other industries do this? I'm sure it's more than just health insurance, and I'm sure it's more than just car insurance. Do the CEOs of other companies that treat people as numbers for profit that leads to harm and death, do they get the Luigi treatment too? Right? And again, which parts of the C-suite get the Luigi treatment, right? Where do we cross this threshold, and which of these companies apply? And my other question that I was going to ask earlier, that and again, I'll try to not, I'm not trying to make you guys Fed post, but let's assume that Luigi had attempted his act and had failed, or had never attempted it at all, and you guys magically did know that Brian Thompson was the CEO of UHC, even though you didn't know that before. Would you be on this panel advocating that somebody go out and give him the Luigi treatment? And if not, why not? And if so, who else is on that list? I just don't know where this principled stance is coming from, that this is the thing to do now and it's good and we should praise him for it.
Well, this is the whole second part of my argument. I'm glad you asked. So, I don't condone necessarily the murder, but the reason I don't is because I think we are closer than we ever have been to getting a single payer, except for maybe not ever have been because of who's about to be president. But it is possible to reform within the system. It is possible to elect someone who will actually change this. The issue I have is, while I might not have that issue, what do you tell the people who are dying and suffering today because of these policies? What are they supposed to do to fight this? Because you can say, hey, in 2 years, maybe we'll have someone who changes this. In 4 years, AOC is going to be president. Maybe she'll, do some crap. But what the hell do you tell the person today that their mom is being denied her medication and dying, that is not getting the
reality is, the problem is that that's just probably not really happening. This is a fabrication that you're putting in front of people because it sounds good, because very few of you, if any of you, and you even have engagement with the healthcare system. This didn't even crack the top 5 issues that Americans voted on last election cycle.
Yeah, because no one knows. You should have killed someone before.
Most people.
No one knows that everybody in the U.S. is dying because they can't get medication.
When did I say everybody? First of all, the number is like 40,000, and that's probably inflated. I didn't say it was everybody.
That people in Colorado and Pennsylvania and Michigan are somehow convinced that illegal immigration is one of the worst issues facing this country, but they don't know that health insurance and
that's what people are talking about. And now we're talking about healthcare. And if a bunch more people did that, maybe they would have voted on that in the election, but they didn't, and no one did. Like I said, you had no videos on it before. A lot of people weren't talking about this.
Sure, and if nobody's talking about it, what would that lead you to believe? It seems like it's probably not having the impact that you're trying to make us believe. If the only way you can get somebody to care about a particular, you don't have to talk about inflation.
Are you implying that if no one's talking about something, it's not happening?
What I'm implying.
When's the last time you saw them talk about climate change?
You gotta let Destiny answer your question.
Climate change is talked about almost constantly. What are you talking about? It was part of major legislative packages that Biden
on
passed.
Fox News. They are talking about the problem that climate change is. They're talking about, wow, the climate's really in trouble and we really need to do something about it.
They're probably giving opinion. They're probably anti-climate change, but they're probably
articles on it. They bring up the Biden bill, they dismiss it immediately, and then they don't talk about it again. And then suddenly it's not a problem because
5 articles in the past 2 days. Blue state governor's climate law, a plot to get left.
Yeah, they're all talking about how much they hate the people trying to solve climate change. They're not really talking about climate change and the effects of it at all.
But the point that I'm giving you is that if nobody's even really talking about this till somebody gets killed, it's kind of strange to come out and be like, oh yeah, healthcare is like killing tens of thousands of people in the United States.
First of
every single
all,
year.
Well,
The
I mean, I
people
think
that
this
it's
is- I think-
affecting
Can I
are
finish
being
the
talked
sentence?
to.
I'm going to finish the sentence before I get cut off. Holy
ahead,
shit.
sorry.
The issue is that on one hand, we're saying that healthcare and denials and claims are poor moms, because this is the example you keep giving. Poor moms are dying because they're not getting their pharmaceutical, whatever they need, because health insurance companies are arbitrarily denying them these things. I feel like if this was happening at an appreciable level and aren't just like horrible mistakes or companies individually just making bad decisions or wrong decisions, if this is like a norm in the industry, we'd be hearing about this a ton. It wouldn't just be an issue that's being brought up now because Luigi shot some dude.
Yeah, did you read the Senate report
I mean,
on this?
Summarize it for me. What is the Senate report on this that you want to summarize?
Yeah, so essentially they investigated that the post-acute care that's supposed to be provided to people was being denied at rates like 3, 4, 16 times higher than the normal denial rate after these systems were implemented. Post-acute care being denied does end up permanently hurting people, taking all the money out of their pocket, or killing them. Do you deny that that's true?
I don't deny that a Senate report said it. Wait, so real quick.
Do you want here? I'll link it to you. In the
Yeah, go for it.
Chat
Link
here?
it and go ahead and I'll go through it.
Yeah.
Wait, is this one released on
I-
October 17th? Okay, sorry, go for
Yeah,
it.
that's the one. You got it. Cool.
Okay.
I would also just like to note, I think a part of the reason that we see, I mean, first off, I would argue that right now over the past 2.5 decades, we're actually seeing an all-time low in the American opinion of their health insurance. I would also like to note that that insurance agencies actually spend a large portion of their profit, or I guess not profit, of their revenue on
administrative.
advertising, explicitly because a lot of what an insurance agency is selling, it isn't actually something tangible. It's the feeling of safety. It's the idea that you can go out and drive, and maybe if you end up in a horrible accident, you're not going to be fucked up the ass because of it. So I think that has to be considered when you're talking about the American public's perception of insurance agencies as a whole.
So
That's why they spend so much money, and I think that's also why they purport themselves to be, a friendly neighbor, why they say that you're in good hands, why they have a cute little gecko that's selling you something, and they have amazing jingles for every single one.
So just to kind of put things into context, while it perhaps may be true that we are at an all-time low, at least in America, for how they perceive the healthcare system, when you ask people how they perceive their individual healthcare coverage, it's 60 to 70% approval rates, right? Like a majority of people like the coverage that they get.
And I do think Destiny's
providers.
statement that a lot of people don't actually have that much interaction with their coverage in the first place goes to explain that. A lot of people don't have to make claims, and a lot of people aren't making claims until part of the way, a considerable way through their life in the first place. So I understand, but I don't know if that actually goes to address the whole issue.
Well, what does that say if the people that are the most supportive of Luigi are young people who don't really engage with healthcare that much in the United States?
I think it says that a lot of people feel really disenfranchised with the future of health in America. I think there have been, obviously tensions have been rising politically across the board, and I think a lot of people are scared that they won't be able to afford their future health care, especially seeing as technology advances in a lot of different aspects of the application of their healthcare.
And I think all the other
Young people are
who-
worried because they think they won't be able to afford it in the future, but the people that are currently engaging with the medical systems have a higher opinion.
all the people that would have voted yes died because of denial, so they couldn't.
Oh.
Well, like I said, I think a lot of the people that are voting yes probably don't have as intimate understanding and experience with the insurance industry as a whole, because I covered earlier about 80% of claims are approved. It's not that every single claim is being denied.
I just have such people right now are disaffected with every possible institution, right? Ratings for every institution at all
Yes,
levels are kind of
true.
at all-time lows when it comes to trust. And healthcare, based on the stats Wick just gave us, I haven't actually looked at this particular stat, seems to be doing better than almost any other institution. So yeah, people are bummed right now about a lot of things, but a lot of that is vibes, and a lot of that is not actual, it doesn't actually track reality always. And so I don't know why I should hang my hat on, well, people are sometimes bummed about it. And the people who are most bummed, as Destiny is saying, are the people who are least involved with it right now and who know the least about it. Well, I don't particularly care. Like, again, I think there's merit to some of what you guys are saying. Like, hey, we should see more of the data about whose claims are getting denied and why. Like, we should, there are provisions in the ACA that could allow us to see more of this data that, for whatever reason, for various reasons, lobbying and everything else, have not been chased down. So maybe we can push for that, right? But I'm just not seeing where in this whole conversation we're having, we've crossed the threshold of now you get the Luigi treatment. And
Well, again,
I don't see you all grappling really effectively with the actual implications of saying, well, the Luigi treatment, at least in this case, was justified, because I'm just not seeing any serious wrestling with like what else is justified on the arguments you're giving me.
I just like to know, again, I don't think that anybody should be going out and getting murdered. I personally am against murder in basically all the options. If we can exhaust, just like with healthcare, if we can exhaust all the other options first, I want to do that first. This is why I in my opening, and I keep going back to it, I think this is a result of tensions. I think this is a result of the modernization of society leading to higher rates of political violence in the first place. And I think I think health insurance agencies, I think companies in general should keep in mind that they are, at the end of the day, selling to individuals who are going to have feelings. They're going to respond to the feelings, which is why I keep saying murder does happen, whether or not we justify it or whether or not we think it's morally good, it's going to happen, and there should be mitigating factors.
I'm going to assume that the insurance adjusters have a possibility of social unrest priced into the algorithm they're employing. Yeah.
Ash has been raising his hand for a while.
Look, I can do this. I promise you. Right? Everyone wants to try to help moderate. I get it. I'll make sure that the people who get to speak are the ones that are.
So when it comes to young people, about 15% of them are being actively treated for mental health issues that's going to interact with healthcare or health insurance in some way. The reason why fraud and other financial crimes are treated with not just making up for the original loss.
Wait, hold on, real quick. Wait, what was that 15% speaking to? What was the point of bringing that up?
You want to wait until I finish the end of it?
Well, no, because you just lied, kind of. You just implied like a falsehood. I said earlier that younger people generally don't have as much engagement with healthcare as older people, and it feels like you brought that up to try to fight against that claim. Are you fighting against my characterization that older people have much more engagement with the healthcare system than younger people? If so, just say that.
Don't more engagement. Older people have much more engagement.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, cool. Okay, just making sure. All right, go ahead.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, that's good. Just making sure.
Any other confusion about whether the statistic there?
Crystal
Do you
clear.
have any kind of like confusion as to whether or not the statistic is accurate? The 15% of them are interacting with being treated for mental health.
15 or 50?
15. No, 50 would be really high.
Oh, 15% have what in the past year have sought some kind of treatment? Probably this sounds okay to be sure.
Yeah, so they're interacting with the healthcare industry. And so the point I would bring up is like, hey, these people are being treated. They're interacting with the healthcare industry. Sorry, I just got back on track. So the reason why financial crimes are treated they're not just punished for the original loss, they're not just punished for the time value of money that hasn't been collected in the meantime, and other kind of financial stress or emotional stress or whatever, but are often treated with punitive damages, sometimes an order of magnitude in excess of the original claim, is because fraud has a corrosive effect on the rest of business writ large, the rest of culture writ large, society writ large. And that's why we punish them so heavily when we do find, especially insurance companies, one of the great successes of the American legal system is that when these do eventually get to court, a lot of them are really raked over the coals by judges, which is, again, a point in favor of the American legal system.
Wouldn't that also be a point against the, for example, extrajudicial killings?
Yes, it would. The reason that happens is, again, because it's corrosive to the rest of people's trust in the care that they're engaged with. And the problem there is that healthcare or health insurance, all insurance really, is not just selling risk management, but selling trust. And so if you have this system that's corrosive to social trust writ large, that's going to lead. How many people are not going to appeal claims that could have been sent through because they just don't want to deal with the hassle, or they think that they're going to have to engage in some long, drawn out legal battle in order to actually get their needs met? How many people are not going to go to the doctor and not get preventative treatment that might have saved their lives?
Okay,
Because
how
they just
does
don't wanna go
hold
through
on
the
just
hassle.
This is
real
what
quick, real quick to engage with that.
No, let me.
How does Luigi doing what he did influence that in a positive manner?
In a positive manner. This dovetails with a few other threads that we were going through earlier, but
I'm trying to
it
tie
puts
them
a
together. I'm
face.
giving you this opportunity
Yeah,
to tie
no,
those
it
threads
puts a
together.
face to an
Put a bow
evil
on
group
it.
of people and personalizes it for the rest of society. So now that healthcare, which is this amorphous, problematic issue that a lot of people deal with, a lot of people, by the way, still say they might be happy with their healthcare, but something like 70% of them say that it's stressful or like a major hassle. That percentage of people who are happy with their healthcare overall has gone down significantly just over the past year. The recent Gallup polls have been down about like 10 to 20% across the board. If you just compare it to 2023.
I'm looking at it right here on Gallup.
Discourse?
It's a 2% decrease, which is a decrease, but it's not
Hold
10,
on.
20 points.
All right.
At least for the Americans' views of the quality and coverage of their own healthcare.
The Ipsos poll
Like
went down
you
to
keep
3
citing
in 5
data, but
Americans.
it's not complete data and it's not accurate data. It's
Right.
data that is very seen through very specific lenses that seem to strengthen your point.
Which is
But
why I
again, when
offer
you
the competing
bring out
point
that
that like
lens
3 in
back,
5 Americans view it as being very stressful,
okay.
which is obviously going to be harmful to their health. Like obviously. So the whole point of killing somebody in that case and what the effect that has on the conversation is a reminder that the people doing this, whatever this happens to be, have names and addresses. And so that provides people a little bit more leverage, a little bit more negotiating power. I don't think it's right. I definitely want a ceasefire here. But if people are going to defraud and corrode social trust over and over and over again for the hope that they can keep their margins up, then I'm not going to feel bad about it. And that's why you've seen like this outflow of overall support. God, I really wish you hadn't interrupted me in the middle of that. I had a broader point that I forgot.
Chris.
I have a question. Okay, you're arguing that this incident gives the people who have grievances more leverage in the power struggle of resolving whatever problems exist. Do you think that this gives them more leverage than legal decisions against these companies? So United Health Group, for example, in the past, in the mid 2000s, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, had a CEO who was ousted through a weird stock buyback fraud thing and was forced to pay back hundreds of millions of dollars of blah, 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 right? That significantly hurt the company, significantly hurt that person, pushed him out of his position, pushed the company to adopt new policies. Do you think that did more damage to the company, or that like killing him at that point would have done it? Or for Brian Thompson, right, who was currently the subject of a lawsuit and an investigation into insider trading and a variety of other alleged crimes, right? Do you think that if that had gone through and had been chased down to its end, that would have given people more leverage, or just shooting them in the back on the street did it? I guess like on the question of efficacy, I'm just not convinced by any of you, and it seems like some of you all are saying, well, I don't know if he was justified. I'm not arguing for it, but maybe it's
No,
fine.
let me respond to that directly with two
like,
examples. One, I don't think that it would have provided, I don't think that the lawsuit going forward would have provided anybody leverage. Because again, Brian Thompson, to your point, nobody knew who Brian Thompson was before this at all. The point of leverage is that
if the lawsuit is about internal policies of the company that are ultimately defrauding the customers of the company, and they're being punished for that at a national scale to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, does that not help the customers of the company? Like, I just don't understand.
only if they organize around it, and only if they know that it's happening. But to our earlier points, the reason why so many claims get denied and then do not proceed forward in arbitration whatsoever is because people view it as a hassle. The legal means of legal recourse is viewed as being sometimes above your station or inaccessible for whatever reason. It's unfortunate. It's often, by the way, not true. And it's a shame that people don't proceed with arbitration more often. They would have less hassle if they did take that additional step forward. However,
how do we know? Wait, how do we know that it's not just that most of the claims denied were probably denied for an acceptable reason?
What does acceptable reason mean in this case? That it doesn't harm the person for having it denied, or the delay in their health
Or that it's not
coverage
actually
doesn't harm them at all?
eligible under the
Wait,
terms
that
of the
it's- yeah,
contract.
that it
without
wasn't-
the
Or
insurance.
that a doctor, or that
Have a
a
number.
doctor just put
Call
in
me.
the wrong number. To be clear, there are tons of
Right,
claims
which
that are
gets
denied just because the
adjudicated
doctor
between the
writes it
doctor and
incorrectly.
the insurer, or the hospital and the insurer usually, right? So
Wait,
that's
I have a
the
stat on
other
this.
reason
Can I
these
take
stats
that?
are not
Suffers in the
helpful, right?
meantime.
Is because when it's errors in paperwork or when it's pre-authorization things, these are solved between the provider and the insurance company, not the patient. The patient is not usually liable for things like paperwork errors that you were describing earlier.
Well, that still doesn't go.
That also
If a
forces-
patient's
that
not,
also
if the
delays
patient doesn't have
treatment.
access to care for some certain, if the patient doesn't have access to care when they need it, it doesn't matter whether or not it was the doctor's fault or the insurance company's fault, or maybe the insurance company is being a little unfair in this one
Wait, but-
in this
Well, it
one
matters
case.
We don't know what
the guy you killed,
percentage
though,
of these
right?
But part of
denials
the problem-
happen after the treatment, right? We don't have any numbers about that either. So the majority of these could be denial after treatment is provided. The insurance company comes back and says, we're not going to pay for that. And then the hospital and the insurance company fight it out. We don't have the numbers for this.
Yeah,
right?
they should release
in the
this to make it
meantime,
easier.
if
Wait,
you're
hold on. Let me
required
read
for
this
Sure,
stat.
advocate
Oh my
for
God.
that.
I do. Oh, so the Massachusetts Insurance Fraud Bureau. So this is something that interacts with the companies. The companies report cases that could be fraud from consumers to them. They had 17,274 cases over a 10-year period, and of those, only 368 were actually found to be fraud. So I know that's not reflective of the entire industry. This is just one example, but that is 2% of the entire potential fraud cases. So the other places that were denied, not saying 98% of them were denied for spurious claims, but a good chunk of them probably were. And you can
Wait a second. That number that you just cited,
Yeah.
are you trying to convey the idea that the vast majority of what they consider fraud isn't fraudulent?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the proof for that was, tell me exactly what those two numbers are. Is it
Yeah,
the
so
30,000 they thought
Massachusetts
were
Insured Fraud Bureau. This is in the book that the shooter read, which I would recommend. It's really good. It's a 10-year period, 17,274 cases of reported fraud by the company, 6,600.
Wait. When you say cases of reported fraud, these were court cases, or it's just that the company thought that we think that these are probably cases of reported fraud? They're not
I would
to a
guess
court.
the latter, because of those, the ones that were accepted by the Bureau, the ones that were actually referred to law enforcement were only 552. So of the 552, if you want to use that number, 368 out of 552, that's over 50% of them, but that's still a good chunk of them that are not fraud.
Oh, you see how huge your number, you see how you just went from 2% of those cases to over 50%, where you understand there's a huge difference between they thought something was fraudulent.
Sure, and that's why I said I don't think 98% of them are spurious denials, but I'm just saying that a lot of the suspected fraud is not fraud, and fraud is very rare. And of the ones that actually do go to court, which means it already passed the gate where they're like, okay, this is definitely something here. Yeah, over 50% of them are done it. I'm not trying to do a sneaky little numbers game here. It's just a matter of the suspected case. Yeah.
This is sneaky because there's a lot of different things being said here. A case, do we mean a court case, or do we mean just a suspected
court
case
cases
of
were
fraud?
of 552,
I understand,
so
yes,
that's after that.
I understand. But then also, you're not talking about fraud that's actually been committed. Are these cases that are recommended to a DA for criminal prosecution of fraud, where the evidence is
552 is referred to law enforcement authorities for possible prosecution. Yes, so
Okay,
that's
so
after
now,
it's past those cases.
so you're talking about fraud at a criminal level. Of course, that's going to be incredibly difficult to prove. There's a 99% burden. And if they're over 50% on the threshold for that, well, I guess it's probably 80, 90, 95% of these things then were probably actually fraudulent, right? Because this was proven in criminal court, right? And also,
Okay,
does that
maybe.
50%, does that include settlements or pleading? Oh no, you can't settle. I'm sorry. Do these include plea deals, or are these just cases that went to trial and ended in conviction? Or
these are all? I think these are all suspected of criminal fraud.
Okay, okay, so then assuming then everything that you just said was true, and I'm taking some of these things at face value, and now we've corrected.
It might not be true. I'm reading it from the book, but go on.
Sure. Over half of the cases that were suggested to authorities, over half of those that were litigated ended in conviction. I don't know if the other half ended in plea deals or not, but even that rate is pretty high. So it's not
Right,
just
but the other 17,000 are, hey, we're suspecting this is criminal, and of those, thousands and thousands were said, okay, no, there's nothing here. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, there's nothing here. Oh, we don't believe we can convict beyond.
That might be the case. It could be that they just say, look, we don't have the evidence for this.
Okay, that is the case because that's how criminal court works in the United States of America.
What I'm saying is like maybe a large percentage more. I don't know how much percentage more, but like this looks to me like fraud is not nearly as prevalent as these insurance companies intend to produce. I mean, you can.
I don't know if insurance companies claim that fraud is a huge issue. I think it's just.
They do. There's a whole chapter in the book about how they advertise fraud as the worst thing ever, and they're spending tons and tons of money trying to project it as the biggest problem in the world because that justifies them denying claims that may or may not be justified in being denied.
Okay, the vast majority of healthcare costs for insurance companies go into like paying for healthcare. I think the issue is just the rising costs of healthcare. It's not just people like committing fraud. Like a lot of that outpatient stuff you mentioned that I'm reading through this like Senate thing has to do with like post care for senior citizens. That's like some of the most expensive care that can be provided for. Like it's not a fraudulent nature. It's just a massively expensive expenditure.
Right. It's the most expensive and it's the most critical to those people, and they're denying that and ludicrously higher rates than they used to do because of these systems that they're using.
Yeah. So unfortunately. And I'm still reading through this, you say they're denying it at ludicrously higher rates than they used to. One of the big issues that I have with everybody that talks about literally anything in terms of data is when people are saying since 2019 to 2022, like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is making data like really crazy in this like 3-year time period. And it's like very sketchy when somebody's saying
that. You mentioned that. You can look at the data and you can see that the number of people being applying for that care is much, much, much higher, which is probably due to COVID, but the percentage denial rate is still increasing.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying that the types of like acute post acute care or whatever that's being sought might be higher as well. And like,
maybe
like, yeah.
This is a point you made, Soy Pill, in your video as well. Not to keep bringing it back to that. I don't want to.
It's okay. Keep mentioning my video. Everyone should go watch it.
Oh, go watch the Soy Pill video. It's quite good. It's enjoyable. But you show this graph of people in the U.S. who self-report delaying medical treatments at higher rates over recent years, and the sharpest increase in that rate is in COVID tide, right? So I think there's lots of reasons why people would avoid seeking medical treatment during this time, right? Like if I just have a random cold or if I just have a random small injury, but I don't want to go to the doctor or the hospital. It's already overloaded because I've been told we're going to flood the whole system, etc. Like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and if systems that are used to deny these things at a specific rate are still in place before and after COVID, of course, then the more people that apply, the more people that are going to be denied. So I'm not saying it's all because of some, crazy malicious.
I mean, that's true whether fraud is happening or not, right? Like if more people apply, more people will get denied, right? Like that's
exactly. But the rate is going up too. It's not just the quantity. I do want to ask you something, Professor, because you mentioned, this is happening.
Just a little housekeeping thing. I want to get to that. Keep that in mind. I want to make a little money. Let me just rapid fire off these super chats real quick.
Right now.
Right?
Hell
and then we'll get to that. Keep that, write it down, do what you need to do. I'll just gonna go through these lightning quick. Haywood Jablomi for $5. Thank you for the $5. If healthcare is a right, isn't fighting against those who took your rights correct? Major civil rights legislation didn't happen until riots. Thank you for $5. $10 from Cavalier 40. I work as a medical biller. Almost none of you know how the claim system works. Every denial has a detailed reason, and every denial of authorization is given a reason why it does not meet medical necessity. $2 from Testicle Johnson. Luigi is being persecuted because he's Italian. Smokestack says, much love, all debaters and enjoyers. God bless. And he gives 5 memberships and pays me $5. And then $5 from Portland is burning. 70% of people who like their personal physician, about 40% say their healthcare is good or great. Approval rating is at a 25-year low in the U.S. Thank you for the $5. Okay. Thank you. Soy, go ahead.
So what I wanted to ask, and I know this is an argument that I think Destiny has used before, a lot of people have used. So if we take something like January 6th, which I think was, completely based on lies, but you have a bunch of people who believe that every legal means of everything is exhausted to them, and they have no other choice but to go and commit some sort of heinous act to get what they want, and what they see as justice. in these cases where, I mean, Destiny, you still are not on the same page as me as whether or not the healthcare is doing this, but just for the sake of argument, let's assume that healthcare is denying at unfair rates, that they are doing what is tantamount to killing some percentage of people, even if they're not doing it maliciously. If that is the case, and if incremental change is not fast enough for the people that are being harmed by this, Professor and Destiny, what other recourse? Because I said this at the beginning, I will concede, if you can show me what immediate recourse these people have to take action and actually do something about it, what can they do?
I would not say that people in a variety of circumstances, even that might be life-threatening, necessarily always have immediate just recourses, right? There are people who develop cancer from some like malicious negligence or incompetence on the part of some company or party that dumps chemicals in the wrong place by a school or something, right? Like those people, by dint of their like imminent death, do not gain the right to go kill the people who cause these problems, even if it threatens their life, right? So I just
wait. Why not? Like you obviously you believe in self-defense, right? Like I know that's not analogous 1-to-1, but like there's some line in between.
Right, I would say
as you separate like the action from
imminence is the issue, right? If someone is right now doing something that will in the immediate future.
Okay, so for the sake of argument, someone if they don't get their healthcare will die, which is a thing that happens.
There's probably I think there's a big distinction between like a negative and a positive action as well. There's a big difference between somebody's doing something to kill you versus somebody's withholding something to kill you as well, right?
You stole it from me, but that's fine. Yeah,
like if you were gonna, like if you were, let's say that somebody broke into your house and you're on the verge of starvation and they stole all your food. Like, could you kill that person breaking your house? You could probably kill that person even if they're breaking your car. I think
these are the intuitions, by the way, behind maritime law that says that you get the death penalty for stealing water at sea. Right?
Sure, but let's say that you're starving. Do you have the right to break into a store owner's bakery and kill them to steal their goods?
Yeah, the difference is I already paid for the bakery goods. They owe me the bread, and they're just saying no, right?
Yeah, that's not happening in the United States.
No, not a single person is denied the rightful payout.
I didn't say not a single person, but
okay. So if one person, maybe it is exceedingly rare. Let's assume it is. Is that one person justified in then killing the person who denied them that care?
I think that unfortunately, I think that this situation is there's too much obfuscation between the provider and the patient to draw a clear line there. If you did want to draw that clear line and say they could kill the person for doing it, then they would be justified morally to kill every single person up the chain of command. So you could go to the hospital.
What if the people are going to get fired if they don't do it, but the person in charge who implements these systems has the power to change it and doesn't?
Wouldn't he get fired too?
Yeah, but he could be a whistleblower.
I'm sorry. Are you saying that those people are justified in saying, "Oh no, I'd lose my job if I saved this person's life"?
Yeah, if it's starve to death on the street or be homeless, they're much more justified.
No, those people are complicit too, right? If you're in a situation where you can save someone's life or lose your job, you should save their life, of course, right? And that person's a bad person if they don't. But I'm not going to kill the person.
The difference is, just real quick, think of the moral universe we're creating. You're standing right in front of a doctor, and you're like, I'm having a heart attack, like I'm going to die. A cardiologist is right in front of me, and the guy's like, sorry, bro, but I'm off my shift. And you go, well, you know what? Fuck you, cardiologist. I'm going to go kill this health insurer that's not paying you money to give me this treatment. Like, how does that make sense? You should be able to kill the doctor at that point, right?
Is he hot?
Yeah.
Wait, so, okay.
No,
is he
actually,
Italian? That's the real question.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just wondering if somebody
I do want people to answer Destiny's question, though. I'll let you go, but I want to gauge with that point, right? Destiny made a point here. Like, do you have the right? A doctor, right? A cardiologist, someone refuses to provide you care.
In that specific scenario, I would assume that a doctor, first of all, would probably just help that person anyway. But let's just say they're not.
Wait, hold on, real quick. Big Papa Buckaroo, your mic, you lagged a ton during that. That's why everybody cut you off. It's because your thing was lagging, so nobody could hear you speak.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so. Thank you.
Sorry, do I go or Papa?
You can go, whoever wants.
Yeah, so like if the doctor is, oh, hey, the system's not going to pay me, so I'm not going to help you. I think in a situation where someone was having a heart attack right in front of them, but regardless, for the sake of the hypothetical, let's say, oh, he's not going to do it because the system tells him he won't, and he will lose his job if he does end up doing that. I think the difference, and Professor, you were saying, oh, well, wouldn't the CEO get fired too? Yes, but the difference is the CEO has options afterwards, but someone in that system may or may not have options once they are fired. Maybe it's literally they're weighing their livelihood over someone else, and I would judge someone weighing their self over someone else. It's a 1-to-1, way less than it would someone who is completely capable of getting fired, surviving off the money he's built from being a CEO, and using that power and leverage and clout to go and spread the word, whistleblow, and say, hey, this is not okay.
How do you square that away with executing Nazi prison guards then?
How do I square? Well, because Nazis, it's literally worse with Nazi prison guards. They would get killed if they would try to defect, right?
Yeah, but I thought you said that they should have been held fully responsible for what they did, or maybe that wasn't your claim.
Okay, I see. I say if they were actually engaged in those acts, if they had no other recourse, it's a lot harder to say, like, hey, like, did you have an opportunity to, like, when you were on a march to go run off, or, like,
Hold on,
I don't
just
know
to
how
be clear,
exactly.
a citizen living in Nazi Germany probably had a lot less recourse than a fucking person that works in health insurance billing or something, right?
Yeah,
or,
sure. Again, but it depends
right?
on if they're directly involved in, like, hey, I was shooting people in the back of the head while they tried to escape. Like, it's a little harder. It's a little more ambiguous, and I'd have to read up on the actual circumstances. There's a bunch of books I haven't gotten to, so. But I can see the
I'm actually
inconsistency there,
curious.
just to be fair. I
I'm
see what
actually
you're saying.
curious
Go ahead,
if somebody, for example, was having an acute mental event, and they went out and committed a violent crime, and they had some sort of proposed reasoning behind it, but ultimately it was an acute mental event after a period of time of social alienation. Would you think that he should be killed?
The person
Would it be justified for
killed
his
at what?
killing?
Wait, like killed at what point? Like in self-defense or after he'd already committed the act?
After he committed the act.
No, I think he should probably be arrested, and then the criminal justice system should treat him appropriately, right? If he was having a mental episode, then you weigh that differently, obviously, right?
Yeah, I guess the reason I'm asking is because at least with the New York statute on terrorism explicitly, it does bring the death penalty to the table in the first place. So when we're talking about whether or not Luigi is a terrorist, I do think that's something worth considering if the answer is yes, because he could be killed for exactly that.
Yeah, but then,
As
I mean,
far
that's
as we
going to be
know.
up to the
Yeah,
prosecution to prove that he was of sound mind when he decided to murder the guy, right?
This is a defense that he could mount, right? He's pled not guilty. He could plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Like, there's all sorts of reasons why he could plead not guilty. But yeah, that's going to be up to them to prove. Like, if you plead insanity, it's a defense that you have to make a positive case for. So
I understand it's different when it comes to how it plays out in court. I was just asking about your personal opinion, Eucharist. I would love to hear your personal opinion on that as well. If having an acute mental event is justification ultimately.
Yeah, I'm in a to quote Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction, I'm in a bit of a transitional period when it comes to the death penalty in general. So I'm not entirely sure how to answer the question, but
I feel that too. Yeah.
I think same thing as Destiny. Like, I think we handle it well in our justice system, which is saying, like, there's a certain class of people where we can understand why they did something that we would ordinarily kill someone for, that this person we might want to give them alternative, life in prison or some sort of mental health accommodation. I'm sure, but that's a thing that would have to be positively defended in court.
Here's a question
and
for
Destiny,
you,
I would
Buckaroo.
love to know I would really quick. I would just love to know, Destiny, your position on the death penalty.
I'm like 51-49 in favor of it. I can understand there being a class of crimes where somebody does something so horrible that the state and the people have decided that this is your penalty for this is death. Obviously, innocent people being executed sucks, but I don't have a strong feeling on it one way or another. I could be argued either way.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, let's say, hypothetical again, let's say Luigi finds out that Brian Thompson actually has a fatal form of cancer. And instead of going the short term, instead of just going and attacking him on the street, he actually figures out how to get a job at Brian Thompson's insurer. And then he becomes Brian Thompson's insurance agent. And then he instead just denies all of the claims for chemotherapy. Would you be in support of his claim denial then if it resulted in Brian Thompson's death?
I wouldn't be in favor of it, but it doesn't even matter what the result is. The criminal intent was there to try to kill somebody, right?
Yeah, that speaks to, like,
if someone
intent.
could accomplish this Looney Tunes level of conspiring,
yeah, that's crazy.
I'm not going to support it in principle,
I mean,
but I would.
Look, this is a Hallmark movie in the making.
I mean, even on the street, would have been interesting.
I
if
think
just
a more
released
perhaps
a bunch of
pertinent
marbles and
question.
saw what happened.
Sure. I think a more hold on. If I may, a more pertinent question along those lines, Buckaroo, the person who had the violent mental episode. It's shown later that they could have gotten care, like mental therapy, etc. The insurance, for whatever reason, didn't cover it. Are those insurance people who denied the coverage, are they on the list? Are they responsible for what that man did?
I mean, my answer's been probably unsatisfactorily vague, because I think, of course, they would have played a part in it, but I don't think they, I don't think they beat somebody to death. I don't think they went out and committed a killing. I think the degree of separation does matter, but I don't think it completely removes any responsibility from people
Certainly
who are
not,
actively
but
involved
but
in
when
the
we talk
denial in the
about
first
holding
place.
people responsible, right? The problem with things like holding people accountable, holding people responsible is you can mean a wide variety of things when you say that. Holding someone accountable could mean something like scolding, a fine, simply not going to another insurance company, a whole host of things, or it could mean literally putting them in front of a trial and charging them for murder, right? So when we make things like how responsible are they, these things, I just want us to be a little more specific when these things. And again, to your side's points here, I'm still waiting, right, for like this justification. I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing a justification of why it's okay that Luigi went out, got a gun, shot a man 3 times in the back, who, again, never did anything personally to him. He didn't deny him any coverage. At least he wasn't even his insurance provider. Like, what makes this okay? And I'm hearing a lot of vague statistics about how people don't like health insurance. Fair, but there's multiple ways to change that in the American system that, it just doesn't justify this at all.
I understand that. I actually think there should be an explicit differentiation between justification and whether it's morally good or bad. Whether I think something's morally good or bad doesn't change whether I think it was justified as a result.
Do you think it was morally good?
No.
Wait, how many people, just as a quick sanity check, I'm sorry, because I don't even know what our positions are right now in this debate. How many people in here think that it was like morally acceptable to whack the CEO dude? Okay, so now I thought this was like 3 on one side and 2 on the other, but now I feel like we're 1 on, okay.
Well, that's why earlier when we brought up the question of justification, I said that I felt differently. That's why I kind of like did a little, because I think there is some justification for it, because I think a part of it is just a result of the interactions between these two people. I think you can't.
Well, stop saying interactions between these two people, because there were no negative interactions between him and the healthcare system, right?
Do you just mean like then that you understand why he
yes.
I'm just trying to figure out
yes.
what...
I understand why he did it, and I see it as
okay was fucking retarded. Was morally okay. That's way too fucking broad. The question is, am I okay with it? No, it's what am I going to do? What do I feel responsible for as a citizen if somebody engages in a crime against somebody else? That question becomes a lot more complicated the greater the scale of the crime is, and my personal motivation to do something is going to be different depending on how far removed I am from that other person, as well as their own moral character. That's the problem. If Stalin gets mugged, murdered, and raped in that order in an alleyway, I don't have to view the mugger, murderer, rapist as a hero in any capacity. But I do get to be happy that Stalin is dead. If I've been negatively affected by Stalin, or if I regard him as being,
are you happy that the CEO of that Brian Thompson is dead?
Very.
Okay.
Maybe that's what we should have asked. I don't know, because to me, that's sort of what I'm looking for. Are you happy that he's dead? Is it a good thing that happened?
Yeah,
if you want to separate
people
who moral,
I want my question.
What are we arguing about at this point? If you don't,
vicious, disgusting crimes that you can engage in the insurance industry. Sorry, tripping over my words. In the insurance industry specifically, because you're breaking trust, which is not only going away from your financial responsibilities, but like you are selling trust to begin with.
Just as a quick heads up, because we keep going back here, but nobody has any numbers. Like the vibe on the other side is that health insurance companies, when they deny things, they're just doing it for profit and for lulz and just to fuck with people. And
no, it's not the vibe. It's the documented cases from McKinsey and all these other companies. But you haven't read these sources yet.
I don't think it is the documented cases.
It's literally they let it out in the documents. Go fucking read them. I know you haven't, but just go read them now. Like you have time. The leaked documents from the McKinsey All-State Company.
He's specifically referring to the McKinsey and Company documents.
Oh, one at a time. Hold up. You're all three talking at the same time, one at a time.
Just
one person. Explain this. Go ahead, Buckaroo. You're the most eager.
This is a McKinsey and Company documents. McKinsey and Company is a consulting firm that was hired by I think it was 5 of the biggest insurance companies in the United States in the 90s.
Insurance companies or?
Insurance companies, because insurance companies in general cover more options than just health insurance. And when you're talking about things like auto insurance will usually cover a part of the claim, and then the rest of the claim goes to the health insurance company. When it comes,
do you understand that health insurance is a very special and separate, like, unique industry? It's not, I don't think it's comparable easily to other types of industries. Like, we use health insurance way differently than we use any other type of insurance, and the amount of regulatory framework around.
I was just explaining to you that when we're talking about things like car insurance, health insurance, they are, at least to a certain extent, intertwined, because at first the claim goes to the car insurance, and then it goes to health insurance afterwards. Once the car insurance, if, for example, you get into an accident, and you, I'll use my grandmother's experience. Actually, that's why I'm in her house with these beautiful curtains. My grandmother was recently hit by a car. She was hit by a car. The person who hit her was insured. And because of that, her claim first goes to the auto insurance, goes to the claimant's auto insurance, the claimant being the person who hit her in the first place. And then the auto insurance gets to pay out a certain amount of the claim. Then it gets bumped to health insurance to finish paying out the claim. Now, when it comes to the McKinsey and Company documents, these are documents that were exposed in a legislation. I don't remember the specific case, but during a case with Allstate explicitly, where Allstate released the documents that were given to them by the consulting firm that list in, I believe, like 150 pages exactly the tactics they should be utilizing in insurance agencies. This was in the 1990s, which is also
Papa, they didn't release them. They prevented them from coming out for weeks and weeks and years until
they prevented them from coming out, and then when they did give them over, they actually gave them unphotocopyable papers. They made it so you couldn't photocopy them, and then after having those returned by the lawyer, the Allstate then just waited around before eventually being forced to give up these documents. But they are documents from the consulting firm explicitly establishing a new standard of how insurance agencies should pursue paying out claims. And this was in the 1990s.
After the release of these documents, was any company prosecuted for?
No, they weren't. It was crazy. No one.
Were there any investigations into any of these companies?
Yeah, there were, and they found them not to be like criminally liable. In fact, every time this happens, the same with the Andrew Cuomo case in 2009, where they say, "Hey, you are not calculating reasonable and customary fees with your systems. You are defrauding customers." These are like exact words. No criminal charges. No criminal charges ever come of this, and that's my whole point. Of if these people are never going to be criminally charged for the actions of denying people rightful care, which again, just for the sake of hypotheticals, just assume it's happening.
Why is it in your mind? Wait, no. We can't just assume it's happening, because obviously that's the entire argument.
Well, that's how we get to the more interesting argument.
Why are you assuming that? Well, it's not more interesting. It's boring, because we all agree past that point. I think all of us here agree. Well,
I don't think we do.
I could get Ukerist over. If the companies were literally like maliciously denying claims just to watch people die for the lulz and money, right? You have a very strong argument for engaging
just the money, not the lulz. But if that's true, I think I can convert
you have some argument there.
I mean, a little
possibly. But why would you assume that if they weren't able to actually convict anybody, why would you assume that it was all? What is the implication, that the government was being corrupt and not investigating?
The implication is that people view the status quo of denying people using a system. It's not directly killing someone. It's not directly robbing someone. I'm just using a computer. The computer has this segmented way of processing claims, and that way is not giving people what they rightfully owe. Hey, you guys need to fix this.
What do you mean? You just begged away all of what they rightfully owe. So that would be, I would imagine, that would be at the very least tort. At the very least,
exactly.
Violation.
It's what's prompt. No, first of all, tort is everything except contract violations. Second of all, if you're giving, you're promising this is what we're going to pay out if you give us this money, and you don't do that when it's rightfully owed. If there's all these cases coming out where they're saying, hey, here's all the documents you requested, give me the money, and they say no, because they know if they delay that, they can get you to either give up or grind you into the ground.
Is there a single civil case that somebody is like demonstrating this, or like class action lawsuits?
Yeah, there's a bunch. And if you read the book by the guy who wrote the fucking manifesto, you'd know all of this, but you didn't. And I know you like to shit on people who don't do research before, but I know you didn't read that book, and it's very frustrating.
No, that's right. I haven't read every single book on this, but
I'm not saying you have to. Every single time I bring up a single fact, you're like,
hold on. We got to go one at a time. You screaming
Sure.
at each other won't work. Finish your point, Soy, then Destiny gets to respond uninterrupted. Go ahead.
Let him go.
If you've read a book and the only thing you can say is you needed to read the book, then you didn't understand the book, and you shouldn't waste your time reading the book.
Only
There are
thing
much
I'm
better
saying. I'm
things.
bringing
That's
up the
only
case.
thing
Well,
it's
if
like-
you're gonna let
bringing up
Destiny
the
go,
point.
you gotta let
Finish!
Destiny
Let me
go.
finish! Yeah, so saying that I read the book, you need to read the book over and over again means that you shouldn't have wasted your time reading the book. Number one. Number two, if you did read the book and you did actually assimilate some reasonable information from it, it sure would be nice if you could bring up a single thing impacting health insurance, especially in a post-ACA world. And if you're just citing this McKinsey leak over and over and over and over again, which is consultations to non-health insurance related companies in a pre-ACA world, what the fuck is even the carryover to the
Okay,
health
so
insurance
ignoring all
right
the other
now?
cases I brought up, ignoring the Senate thing that came out 2 months ago, ignoring all of this, like I'll keep bringing up sources, I'll keep bringing up what I read in the book, I'll keep like trying to like scroll through my 14 pages of documents, but then you just keep denying that. It's like, oh, well, I still don't think it's happening. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I can keep showing you these.
Why not, instead of just naming and blurting out a bunch of random shit that's not applicable, give me the strongest thing. And we can start there. That's what we normally do.
What is the strongest thing that you need to see that would prove and change your mind? Let me.
We are talking about like arbitrarily denying things for unjustifiable reason, unjustifiable cause.
What is not being shown that is the case in the Senate report?
The Senate report, one, it's not even showing that. It's just showing that there's an increase of denials, and it's only talking about outpatient care related to Medicare Advantage patients. That's only one sector of what's even being talked about.
And I'm not saying it.
Number two,
wait, would it have to be widespread? Would it have to be everything, or you wouldn't change your mind?
It wouldn't necessarily have to be. You could show me in that industry. But number two, I don't think in that Senate report, but from what I just read, it doesn't even seem like they're alleging anything actually wrong happening with
criminal. Yeah, that's the fucking point. It's not. They don't think it's criminal.
They're saying that So then wait, if the issue is just that denials have gone up for some reason, okay, of which
not
who knows if it's
for the system that is arbitrarily denying things on things that when read by adjusters, they say.
Hold on, maybe I can help. Give us.
Wait. Where in that Senate report? Just show me. Then tell me which page. It was like 50 pages. Okay, I read about 25 of them, and then I skimmed the rest. Okay, where in that report does it say they are arbitrarily or unfairly or unjustly or in violation of their agreements denying people insurance claims? Where's that?
Yeah, it's just at the very bottom. There's a role for the free market to improve the delivery of healthcare to America's seniors, but there is nothing inevitable about the harms done by the current arrangement. Insurers can and must do better. Yeah, thanks, Senate, for the sake of the American healthcare system and the patients the government entrusts to them.
Okay, I'm going to ask that a question again. What part of this report says that they are arbitrarily rejecting or denying claims?
What do you need to see? Do you need to see that it's not supposed to be the rate that it's at? Do you need to see what the word harm is? Like
no, not harm. What do you mean? Cars harm people by output. That doesn't mean that you're
and denying people medical care harms them, and this is denying more people medical care. The Senate says this is wrong. They say they need to change, and they're not doing criminal charges.
No. It sounds like they didn't even find any wrong behavior. It just sounds like
what is wrong behavior?
Something that's unethical or illegal or in violation.
They say it is unethical. They said right there, this is unethical.
Can harm result from legal behavior?
What?
Can harm result from legal behavior?
Yeah, of course. Okay. Are you saying that to Destiny?
No, the conclusion of the report that you're reading is like, yeah, look, we can do things to rectify.
That's just my whole argument. The status quo is that denying people claims that may end up killing them is not viewed as that bad in our current system. That's the reason you guys are making the arguments you're saying.
No. You keep sneaking all this bullshit in, which leads me to think you know that you're full of shit right now. Nobody is saying every single denial is not necessarily bad or unjustified.
I agree.
Keep sneaking in. Also, why do you keep saying ethical? There's no thing on that conclusion for that report about ethical. You're adding that word. They didn't say that they're acting unethically.
Okay, they say there are harms done by the current system. Maybe it's not unethical.
Hold on. Does that make that system unethical? If a system does harm, right, does that necessarily make the system unethical?
Well, it'd be more about the fact that I think what Destiny would want to say is that are the people who are implementing the system actively doing it, knowing that it is doing bad things and not caring? I would say they are, but I think that's what Destiny would want to see.
Wait, just last point. I'm sorry, last point, because you keep bringing up this report, and then you can do this, okay? You keep bringing up this report. What did the report even suggest?
Do better.
Who?
The people that are implementing the system. So United Healthcare, CVS, and there's one other.
So no, you're wrong. Although the subcommittee's recommendations in this report are targeted at regulators, The whole point is to change the law because this is a heavily regulated insurance industry. That's why I keep getting mad when you guys are coming with car insurance examples. The whole point is health insurance this is why you can't sue these companies, because it's so regulated. They don't want to be getting sued for things that they have to do in accordance with rules set by the federal government because of laws passed by Congress.
Why do they have to implement computer systems that deny people? That's not something they have to do.
They're trying to
They
save
have
money
to
because
have
healthcare is
solvency.
expensive. They have
Right.
to because healthcare
So
is
if the only way they can operate is by doing this, in the same way that I would say that if you can only afford to have your company by paying people less than minimum wage, then you shouldn't exist, and the government should step in and do it. Like,
yeah, the government denies people too.
say-
yeah, they do, but not at the same rates.
You don't even know the rates. You just said that it's not publicly available information. So why would you even
but
say
I can
that?
at least compare in general to what they're doing in other countries. Sorry,
I do want to make sure more people get in. Ukerist's been trying to get in. Buckaroo's been trying to get in, and Ash wants in. So we're gonna go in that order: Ukerist, Buckaroo, Ash. Go.
I just don't understand the standard by which you're measuring whether or not they are doing something worthy of giving the Luigi treatment to the CEO, right? So
Well, we can't
you
get
are
there,
reading
'cause,
this.
like, Dusty and I are gonna
Let me
keep
finish.
arguing.
Let me finish. Hold on. You're reading a report that says, "Hey, we could probably do something to minimize the harm done." Right? Fair enough. Right? But it seems like what you're suggesting is they should minimize all harm. Right?
No.
I'm perplexed. Right? Because there's when I buy insurance from a company, I'm entering into a contract and paying them a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time that's going to cover a certain amount of services in the event of certain conditions, right? And they're suggesting, or they're arguing, that when they deny my claim for certain coverage, that there are good reasons for doing that. Now, I think I think we could probably all agree there are circumstances where an insurance company could deny coverage. It would result in harm, but they are doing that within the limits of the contract they've made with the customer. Is that true?
100%. That happens
Okay,
probably more
so-
often than an
so
unjust
which-
one.
So the report that you're reading does not in any way tell me that they're doing something criminal that I could sue them under,
Well, they're
that they could be
definitely not doing anything
prosecuted
criminal.
for.
Okay. They're not going to get prosecuted. Okay, I agree.
Wait, I'm sorry. They're not doing
I do
anything
think it's-
criminal.
Hold on.
I'm sorry, 'cause
I don't
you
think
think
they
it's
are. I
unethical?
don't think they're breaking the law.
Two more
as
things.
far as this is.
Okay,
Yeah.
Two more things. Go ahead.
what you all were alleging earlier was a strong amount of fraud, actual fraud, actual like I could bring a lawsuit against you, or you could be prosecuted by the federal government for violating federal regulations governing healthcare insurance. Fraud. If you're saying they're not violating statutes, then I don't know what we're talking about anymore, and I don't know how you could possibly justify the thing that this
You
debate is
yourself said,
about.
Can something
There are
cause
a lot
harm
of-
and be legal? Yes, right?
There's
Professor?
something called the four.
Sorry.
Say that
No,
one
it's
more
okay.
time.
Well, you brought up, you said, can something be legal and cause harm?
No. I said no. I said, could we be working within the insurance system? Could we look
Mhm.
at the contract I made with my
Yeah.
insurance company? Could they deny my coverage? Could that denial be valid under that contract and cause harm? And we all
Okay,
agree.
well, that
yes.
too, but could you also agree that there are things that people do that you would probably disagree with that are not breaking a law?
Yes.
That's what I'm arguing.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
No.
So
we're
then,
not breaking a law that we're
I would
killing
like-
over.
right.
What?
Not. I just don't even know where to go from here. I feel like we've run into so many dead ends that I just don't even know how you're justifying the thing we're arguing about. Right? If you've
Well,
gotten to the point
that's
where
my
you're saying
question,
no
is-
law was broken, no, there's no action I could bring against this company to resolve the harm that they've done.
Well, then what?
They
Yeah,
can
exactly.
change the
There's no
law.
action.
This is a policy question.
Right, exactly. And when when does that policy happen? Does it happen a year from now? Does it happen 4 years? What do you tell the person right now that might die because of their denial of coverage if they can't do something to immediately change their situation? That's what I'm asking. That's my whole question, and that is what will convert me to your
From
side.
a rare kind of cancer, from some chemical dump outside their school,
Mm-hmm.
from decades ago. Right? What do I tell them? I tell them, hey, there's laws, and we're processing it, and we're going through the process.
Yeah, so essentially
you
get
can't
fucked.
just
So,
go out
you
and
can't
kill
do
them.
anything.
You can't just go out and kill people because of it.
I don't think you should, but what else do you tell them?
But that's the whole debate. That's the
Yeah,
whole.
okay,
hold
that's why
on,
we're
saying-
here.
A part of what I do think is
Buckaroo, go ahead.
Part of what I do think is worth criticism is the way the policies are developed in the first place. And I agree, Ukerist. I can hear you saying now that you just want more transparency from insurance agencies, and I absolutely agree. I think insurance agencies should be more transparent. So there's something called the Four Corners rule that's utilized by insurance lawyers specifically, and the idea is that the scope of the coverage is actually completely covered by what's written within the four corners of the paper on which the policy is printed. Now, there have been multiple occasions where different courts have actually castigated castigated these insurance companies specifically because they will use bad faith when interpreting different policies, and yes, I know bad faith is something specific, but they will use bad faith when interpreting these policies, and they will go out of their way to create their own internal definitions of what is and isn't, for example, burglary. So in this specific case, the Iowa Supreme Court actually, this did go to court. They rejected a policy because the definition of burglary within the insurance policy was requiring visible marks of forceful entry on the exterior. And they used that as reinforcement for claim denial, because the burglary, of course, couldn't have been an actual burglary if there weren't visible marks on the exterior explicitly. And this is one of the circumstances in which, while I agree this is written in the policy, I think there are issues when it comes to the faith with which the policies are enacted on the claimants. And I think that goes to the exact papers.
I don't think this has anything to do with health insurance. I think this is I don't think that they're going to be using like novel definitions in an insurance policy that isn't understood literally throughout the entire industry.
I staunchly disagree. I think this happens all the time.
Can you
I think
give
this
is
is
an
exactly
example?
why there's a bureaucratic process.
Hold on, no, we keep.
Stop.
In a moment. But this goes to the point, right? Like, we keep talking in vagaries. What is a specific example in the health industry where they define an insurance company defines something in a way that is bad faith? Well, here we go.
Actually, you know what? Destiny actually referred to this earlier that I thought was really, that's pretty useful now when we're talking about what is and isn't an elective surgery. You know, he's talking about the elective surgery of having your arm bone fixed, but I think the person walking around with a broken arm probably feels differently about whether or not it's elective, because there's a specific definition that's being utilized by the insurance company that may or may not be understood by the person when they are signing on to the policy in the first place. Now, I think the average person, when they're choosing their specific plan, which, again, to be clear, most people cannot choose the insurance agency through which they get insurance. They actually only choose the job that they have, and then those jobs have specific insurance companies from whom they buy insurance packages, and that is what is utilized for their employees. So the option of change your insurance is actually quit your job. Then you can get new insurance. Then you can actually have an issue with the policy that's being offered to you. And even then, you're given like 4 or 5 policy plans in the first place. But back to my original point, I think there is something important regarding the specific terminology that's utilized by insurance agencies to deny claims that otherwise, from a good faith, or what I would say is a good faith interpretation, what the Utah Supreme Court would say is a good interpretation.
Yeah, this is not happening. This is not happening. This is just a
do you have any evidence? Do you have anything
I can prove that something's not happening? I can't prove a negative. I cannot prove that a thing is not happening. But the idea that because somebody doesn't know what an elective surgery means, that they're getting scammed, like, I'm sorry, if you don't know, like what? Like, let's say I don't speak English.
This is exactly why I wanted to finish my point, which is that it's not just about whether somebody knows what an elective surgery is. It's about the fact that, like I said, insurance companies use explicit definitions that are not known by their claimants to basically lure them into the trap of signing on to a specific policy without understanding.
This doesn't even make sense, because you literally said in your...
If I can finish... If I can read this other quote from the Utah Supreme Court, insureds buy financial protection and peace of mind against gratuitous losses. They pay the requisite premiums and put their faith and trust in their insurers to pay policy benefits properly and fairly when the insured event occurs. Good faith and fair dealing is their expectation. It is the very essence of the insurer and insured relationship. So I think it is actually very important to understand and to ensure that the claimants who are signing up for these policies in the first place have a clear understanding of the policy at hand.
Why do they even have to obfuscate? Wait. Why would they have to?
We can't have training.
You got 30 seconds, right? We can't be held hostage. No,
it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Why would they have to obfuscate their terms? If you just said earlier, people can't even choose their insurance anyway. If they're all getting that from their job, then why would they even have to go through the trouble of trying to obfuscate what people are signing up for? Like these are just fantasies. Like nothing that you're quoting even has to do with health insurance. All of these cases, the Utah one, the Iowa one, are all like about car insurance and stuff. It's a totally different industry.
Again, to be clear, this is an insurance
insurance
company that has different kinds of insurance that they offer. They can still bounce from car insurance to health insurance, because when you have any health claims related to any other form of insurance that you have, it goes to that first form of insurance and then it goes to health insurance. So this is all intertwined. You want this explicit discrimination between these two, but you're wrong. It is not as clear as you imply.
It is very clear. Your car insurance is not your health insurance company. You wouldn't go to your car insurance and say, I got in a car accident. Can you front me some money for my monthly SSRI prescription? Or can you give me something like a car insurance? When it comes to the health insurance, a different thing. Go ahead.
When it comes to the injuries that occur as a result of a car accident, you do go to the car insurance agency. You say, I was hurt from this car accident. I have to pay for these bills because this claimant has caused harm in some way. It goes to the car insurance agency first.
Yeah,
then it goes to the health insurance agency.
But I'm saying that this is a different thing than your ordinary health insurance.
What I'm talking about. This is a part of health insurance. You think it's not a part of health insurance because you don't understand what car and health insurance are. It is not my fault that you don't get what car insurance is and how claims for car insurance injuries go through car insurance first.
If this conversation was supposed to be a debate about how we regulate car and health insurance policies, this would be a completely different conversation, right? If we just wanted to say, hey, in an ideal world, what regulations would be passed for separate issues, health and car insurance, to make them better, that it would be a different conversation.
I mean, I'm not,
and that's part of why I'm agreeing with you on the data transparency issue, right? Where I want to know why and how these insurance companies are making these denials, right? The question that we came in here to debate is when and how these denials justify gunning someone down on the street. And so,
no, it's important. You have to know if they're justified or not, because that's at the end of the day, that's really the only thing that matters. And nobody knows about anything, how insurance works or whatever, which is why she thinks that the health insurance,
which is why you don't seem to understand exactly where these claimants go in the first place. This is why you don't understand the jargon that's utilized by insurance agencies in the first place.
You're clueless. Do you think car insurance companies are regulated under the ACA the same way the health insurance companies are? No. Do you get a Medicare extension or a Medicare
why
Plus plan
you are explaining my argument to me about why I see an issue with claimants and their relationship with the insurer in the first place? Because it goes to car insurance agencies first?
Destiny, go ahead.
That are owned by the same company?
Hold on. When I say Destiny, go ahead, I mean Destiny, go ahead. And then when I see you, Soy Pill. We're going to get you in right after, but Destiny has to have a chance uninterrupted to respond. Destiny, go ahead.
There's just the fact that a car insurance company might cover some medical expense. When we talk about health insurance companies, we're not talking about car insurance companies. We're talking about health insurance companies where that is the product that they offer, and they're hardcore regulated by the Affordable Care Act. And there's a whole list of regulations and everything that come into play here when we're talking about these companies. And every single data point that you guys were citing earlier, things related to that Senate report and things related to the 90% denials and all these have to do with like Medicare Plus plans or Medicare extension plans or whatever. These don't, which is
insurance plans from insurance agencies, to be
health
clear.
Insurance, Medicare,
which is not the, which is
Medicare is implemented through
that's not when you get a car accident. You don't get a car accident. You don't. That's not for car accidents. That's not for car accidents.
Brian Thompson himself.
That's not for car accidents.
I'm not talking about car accidents when I'm citing the Medicare Advantage.
You already said, Destiny, you can go to your car insurer and tell them you have medical bills related to a car accident.
Okay.
That is how, like I have said, you are clearly displaying a lack of understanding with the relationship between health insurance agencies and car insurance agencies. And when you have a car accident that results in the necessity of medical bills being paid, that is going to a car insurance agency first. Now, Soy Pill.
Oh, thanks. First, I want to say Destiny is drinking Soylent right now. That makes him objectively the most correct in this conversation. Destiny, I'm looking at this report. I did not quote every single thing. I didn't know you would fight me so hard on this. Is this enough for you? It says, This majority staff report reveals how Medicare Advantage insurers are intentionally using prior authorization to boost profits by targeting costly yet critical stays in post-acute care facilities. So, Allah intentionally using these systems to deny care from people who may or may not rightfully deserve it. I'm sure some of these denials, maybe even a majority of these denials, are allowed.
I'm sorry. Read that quote again. I was
sure, and this is under the executive summary.
Yep,
and by the way,
yep.
sorry for all the yelling, because like I can see how this is my first time doing this, and
Stop
I can
apologizing.
I'm having
Just get to your
fun.
point.
I think
no,
this
I'm
is
having
great.
fun, but I mean, I want to approach. I'm seriously trying to approach this in good faith. And so, in the executive summary, it says this majority staff report reveals how Medicare Advantage insurers, aka United Health, CVS, and one other I don't remember, are intentionally using prior authorization to boost profits by targeting costly yet critical stays in post-acute care facilities.
Yes. Costly. The issue is that these particular stays are incredibly expensive.
Sure.
So you have two options. You have one option. The only way you have two options. The only way that you can do this, or maybe three, you can either increase premiums to customers.
Right.
You can decrease the cost of what the people pay out by negotiating with them, which people in America get ass paid at. Or you can be more stringent on what you cover. Those are the only three things that you can do.
Yeah, it is a zero-sum game. You're going to have to take money from somewhere else to pay for this care. And what this is saying, I'm trying to establish that they are intentionally denying care, which may or may not result in harm, if not death, to certain people for profit. And whether or not that's because, and you can make this argument, because the government is enforcing these stringent regulations that's forcing them, they say we cannot be operable if we do not do this. That's totally fair. I understand that. I'm just saying that the decisions being made by the higher up people are denying people care that may or may not kill them. That's it.
I don't agree with the death part. Okay, where people are dying because of this, because I don't think that is the case. Okay.
Okay. So if you need, sorry, go ahead.
This has to do with staying in care facilities after surgeries and stuff, right?
Yeah. Right.
But
so if you have a wound,
there are alternatives to this. Right? You don't have to go to a facility afterwards. You can get like in-home treatments instead, or you can visit a hospital instead, right? Sure, you can do other things, right? But what this report is saying is that if the person's not being allowed to stay in a post-acute care facility and they get instead opt for that other thing, or they do that other thing, that's counted as like a denial or whatever for this report. Also, this report is only dealing with the time period between 2019 and 2022, which is an incredibly odd period for healthcare coverage, like time periods, which is why even in looking at the conclusion of this report, all of their conclusions go towards the regulations that maybe we should try to regulate this industry in a little bit of a different way. You're saying that people could be dying as a result of this. These are for Medicare Advantage plans. These are things that are on top of your ordinary Medicare already. So if you're advocating for getting rid of stuff like this and just expanding Medicare for all or something like that, these people would literally all be doing worse under that plan because they all already qualify for Medicare anyway. These are just Medicare Advantage plans. So nothing in this report is getting you anywhere near the fact that somebody was engaging in such a behavior.
Is there a more than positive chance that someone who is denied post-acute care for, let's say, a wound, where they could get sepsis, that could get infected because they can't afford it, and they can't afford the alternative, would not die? Is that possible?
No. People are not being, no. These types of denials are not like you have sepsis and you're being denied like long-term care. These are like you have an injury that you get, it's maybe some surgery in the hospital, and then you've got to do some like physical rehab or physical therapy, and maybe the doctor...
Some post-acute care is wounds, like from surgeries, that if you don't treat correctly... No, wounds. Wounds could become septic post not treating them, right?
Yes, it could, I guess.
Right, so I'm just saying, is it possible that there's even one person who's denied that post-acute care, that their wound is not treated correctly and they die?
That's possible, sure. But it's also possible in the other world that too many people get approved for this, and now there's no room for somebody who actually does need to stay.
No, exactly. No, you're right. Wait, wait. Destiny's right. Destiny's right. The reason they're doing this is
quick
they're
fact checks. Let them finish. Then I get to super chats, and then we'll continue on. Go ahead.
Okay, well,
it's related only to this.
No. Soy, finish your...
I want to say Destiny's right. The reason that they're justifying implementing the systems is an over-approval of care for people that don't deserve it. Like, yeah, 100%. There's plenty of people.
Don't deserve it. There might be a substitution instead. Like, you could go home and have the same type of care.
Sure. Sorry. Maybe the word is too loaded, but that don't need this care, right? Like, they're approving people. The system was approving people, and it's like over-approving people. It's losing the company money, and these people didn't need it. I understand that. Yeah, I'm just saying there's a fraction of people. There must be a fraction of people who are denied this care, especially when it goes to as much as 16 times higher than their normal denial rate, who probably need it and may or may not die from it. That's all I'm saying.
Not as policy, though. That would be an accident or an oversight or something that's fucked up.
Sure, but like if they don't get the proper treatment because they either can't afford it because the alternative's not there for them. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
But you're not dying of sepsis. Sorry, go ahead, Big
No,
Papa.
it's fine. Just gonna get some. We're gonna get some super chats
Oh.
in there. Then we go to Buckaroo, and then we'll keep going. Deity for $20. Destiny took the L, defending the big businesses and CEOs after the death penalty and the death penalty nowadays too. Brian Thompson got the death penalty from the American people after enacting the October 7th of healthcare on us, and that's facts. Well, thank you for the $20. $5 from Robert Bates to say ERISA law prevents suing for more than the claim. ERISA prevents putative, emotional, or jury trials. There are no consequences for incorrect denials. $5 from Rabid Wombat. Does Soy think it would have been more ethical for Luigi to grape the CEO instead of murder because it leaves room for a post-grape CEO redemption arc?
Can I answer that?
In a moment. Let me get through the rest of these.
Okay.
But yes, keep that in mind. It's an interesting question. Symposium Brain for $20 says Melina recently confirmed that the sex tapes leaked by Destiny's former
Jesus Christ.
girl were shared by Destiny without her
Nice,
consent.
good one. Nice.
If she has no legal recourse.
And I've got a whole bunch of super chats for you, Wick. Ready?
Okay. Did you not?
Wait.
Okay, fair enough.
Wick is a stinky butt. I think that's a #1 super chat. He's
$5.
probably gonna mention. Sorry.
$5 from Origuni. How would the people on the panel like to be treated if accused of murder? Do you want a trial or would you prefer Luigi? $5 Smoke D Bandit. The argument that you're stuck with a company because of your job is incorrect. This is America and you can choose any company. $5 from Very Late and Tired. The one screaming about car insurance is incredibly wrong. She shouldn't be accusing others of ignorance. It's embarrassing. And then finally, $5. Wick, just tuning in, but wondering if Buckaroo has improved on her arguments on this topic since I debated her on the last healthcare panel. Thank you for the money. Okay, with that, Buckaroo, ball's yours.
I'm not
can I answer
wrong.
the super chat?
There's
Sorry,
actually a
okay.
specific. There's actually a specific branch of insurance that's used for this purpose. It's called third-party liability, and if the car insurance company denies the claim, it doesn't go to medical. The only way it goes to medical is if it goes to car insurance first and is approved by car insurance. Which is again why I will reiterate there is a complex relationship between all of these kinds of insurance and the discrimination that you're trying to make Destiny especially between health insurance and car insurance is just a fallacy
Wait, what are you
made
talking
in your own
about?
mind. Third party liability.
What do you think third party liability means?
It's a specific term used again with the insurance having its own definitions. It's actually a specific branch of insurance companies that's used to interact between the car insurance and medical insurance. It is used because first and foremost, they are different kinds of insurance. But if the car insurance denies the claim, it does not go to medical. It has to be approved by the car insurance company to go to medical in the first place.
So one, I'm not even sure if that's true, and two, the very easy
Okay,
counter
look
to
it
that.
up.
Two, the
look it
very
up
easy
then.
counter to that. You understand that you're not required to carry like medical insurance for your own accidents, right?
I
So if I
didn't
get
say
into
that.
a car accident and I don't have, and I
Are
don't
you
have
making an
car
assumption
insurance,
about my claim? If you're making
No,
an
but,
assumption,
like-
you can ask me my opinion. I don't understand why you're making an assertion about my claim right now when you can just ask clearly.
liability, my guess is going to be in, and I know
I
this
don't
is
want to
probably the
guess.
case.
Okay,
Well,
if
you'll
you
have to because you
won't
don't know
even
anything
believe my
Okay, sorry,
statement
go
that
ahead.
I
Let me
know
know when
is
you're done.
correct,
Go
I don't
ahead.
want to hear
Yeah.
your fucking
You've been wrong
guess
at almost every
about
single thing
it.
you said. Third party liability probably has to do with the fact that if you can't make a double.
Probably, based on your assumption.
Link me exactly what you're reading, and I will educate you on how absolutely fucking stupid
You
and
can't
clueless you are about this
educate me
particular thing.
because
I
you're
absolutely
wrong.
will. I can't educate you
You
because you
are
don't know anything
wrong.
about what you're talking about. Go ahead, link
I
me. What do you
do.
link me exactly what you're reading? Go. Link me. Go ahead.
Obviously
Link
more
me.
educated on
Link
this.
me.
I'll
Link
let-
me. Link me. Go
Well,
ahead.
while
link
you
me.
guys
sorry,
are
I
linking
didn't-
each other,
Before I
stop.
read what
I
I'm
didn't know
saying,
the
wait,
opinion-
before I read what you're saying, my guess is third party liability tries to avoid two things. One is if you get into an accident where you're clearly like at fault or you've done something bad,
I don't
or the
care
car
about
insurance company has
motivation,
checked it out and you're not liable at all for a particular thing, and they say there's no injury here, you can't go to a health insurance afterwards and try to get a claim that somebody else already validated. Is like, this is absolute bullshit. Number one. Or number two, it's something you can't do double claims. I can't go to my car insurance and say, hey, I got an injury, can you give me money for it? Oh, and go to your personal insurance and say, hey, can you give me money for this injury? So you don't do double claim. That's my guess for what third party liability has to do. Usually you go down a line of liability, so you're not double claiming. This is the same thing with credit cards and other types of liability insurance as well. Link me what you're reading. Link me what you're reading. Link me what you're reading.
Third-party liability
Let's-
insurance.
while you guys
from
link
Medicaid-
that.
Wait, Buckaroo.
Hold on, while you guys think
Look,
that, I want to give
can
it
I,
to
can I,
Soy.
because you guys are talking past each other. Can
You
I
guys are just
say-
not listening to me, and I'm
We're
going to
not
start
talking
mute.
past each other.
You aren't
We
listening to
disagree
me, and I'm going to
because
have to.
he doesn't know what
Okay,
he's talking
well, We are
about.
going to mute for a moment so I can fucking do this thing, okay? We're going to give it to Soy. It's Soy's turn. You can link Destiny, the appropriate thing, and you guys can have that little back and forth later. But I want to hear Soy's opinion, and he was asking a very interesting question.
Okay, I'll get to the super chat, but I want to say, like, about you guys. Yeah, I'll get to that. But the thing that you guys are arguing, like, Destiny, you were talking about how the examples we brought up were from auto insurance. It's not applicable to health insurance. I agree. Like, it's not one-to-one. What Buckaroo is trying to say is that sometimes the health of people is determined by these companies that do auto insurance. I think that's all she's trying to establish, and that sometimes these bad practices, these examples that we brought up that you said weren't applicable, could be applicable to someone's health. That's it, right? Am I correct?
I do think, yes, but I do think he understands that. I think he just blatantly misunderstands the concept of third.
Don't throw more bad faith in it. Just let him talk. Just let no. Don't assume what he's saying.
I don't know why this is not the rule. We're just talking about such a niche thing. It's like talking about. It's like saying we're having a
third party liability is in the first place. He literally made a whole assumption about it. He's arguing based on that.
Okay, this is why people should listen to me, and I want to. Look, they'll get to it in a second.
Liability coverage, and that's it.
Oh, stop! Soy, you were asked a question. You should have just answered my goddamn question.
Okay. I don't believe in doing direct harm to the CEO, because I believe there's, like probably everyone on the opposite side of this debate, that there are lots of things that we can do to make this better. I believe in making the numbers more transparent. I believe we can vote for people that will get single payer systems. I believe we can put more regulations on hospital costs. So no, I don't think you should go grape the CEO. But the whole point of this argument, and the thing we'll never get to because we keep arguing about whether or not the insurance is even doing this, is once we know that if, assuming the insurance is doing this, and Professor Bunn has tried to address this several times, then is it justifiable for someone who is suffering under that system to do something about it? And I don't know if we'll ever get that, but yeah.
We won't, because because most people are going to be very narrow in their agreements there. They're going to be slightly opposed or slightly in favor of. I'm sure that even for Ukerist, as principles he might say he is, as a fucking conservative professor, mustache having motherfucker, I'm sure I could find scenarios where you would argue that it's understandable or maybe even justified to take action against some system that is horrendously failing you. That if I can show you that police officers are intentionally ignoring 911 calls where you're being murdered or whatever, that there are probably times when vigilantism is not only understood, but maybe even morally acceptable as a way to further some goal with a system that's clearly broken. But most of our moral arguments are going to take place within the framework of a system that we believe is functioning to some extent. So that's why we have to make the argument for whether the system is functioning or not. Vigilantism is a great thing in tribal societies where there's no court. Vigilantism is a horrible thing in societies where you do have court. Also, you can link the general chat of the flock, general for
I also put it in the
but that's
chat
what's so
of
interesting. Destiny is because it seems like if I were able to show you that this was happening, and clearly I haven't, and that's fine, I accept that, then would you find it potentially justifiable in the same way that you said, yeah, with the 911 calls, with any of these other things, if for the people specifically who are not able to do and wait around for the regulation to catch up, who are specifically hoping that someone goes out, makes this big message, and causes something to happen in the immediate, well, what do you say to those people? Because that's the whole thing I said at the beginning. I will concede if you can show me there's a better alternative for the people who do not have the time to wait for that sort of regulation to come in and change the laws, for a new system to come, especially considering Donald Trump's about to come in, probably cut Medicare, get rid of regulations, maybe even abolish the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which helps people who deal with these claims. It does happen. So what do we tell those people? Because if you have a better option,
all these problems are happening and you have to do vigilantism, and that's literally the only thing, then of course,
no,
definitionally,
I'm
you're
not
saying by last recourse, then sure, then that's the last recourse. I'm just saying that I don't think these problems are happening like this in the USA, which is why
at all, ever, to one person, 10 people, any number, right?
I'm sure that I can find one example of anything happening anywhere.
Okay, so what do you tell that person? What does that person do for recourse if the legal system
doesn't? If you want to go vigilantism, then if it's at the point where you're being personally vindictively targeted by some insurance exec or a doctor, then fucking go for it. Fucking A, knock yourself out. But that's not what we're arguing here, and I don't like to even concede that because that's a bad faith argument, because you're arguing, or maybe not you, no, you were, because you were the one that raised your hand, is that the random assassination of a terrorist on the street by a healthcare CEO is somehow justified because of the state at large of our healthcare industry in the United States. That is a far cry from I live in Minnezuki, Missouri, and there's a healthcare agent that I fucked their mom when we were in high school, and now he's pushing the denial button on my chemotherapy over and over and over again because he fucking hates me. These are two totally different types of claims, and the latter will never read to justifying the former, in my opinion.
Okay, wonderful. We've got there. So, did you get the link that Buckaroo was trying to send, Destiny?
What do you think this link is proving me? What
the concept of third-party liability and exactly what third-party liability is for.
Be specific. What do you think that this has to do with any of the arguments we made earlier about the ACA or anything else?
It had to do with my arguments about what third-party liability is.
Buckaroo. Was my characterization of your argument with Destiny even remotely in the realm, or am I just completely off base?
Yes. I said yes. I think this is exactly how different companies.
So regardless of that at all, like, don't even look at that link. Destiny, the claim is you saying that the examples we brought of auto insurance were not applicable because they're not health insurance. That's true. We're saying that there are cases where people are denied proper healthcare by the auto insurance that has been proven from leaked documents to carry out these practices. So does that change anything or no?
No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the state of like healthcare coverage in the United States. And a lot of what it's centered around has to do with court cases or Senate committee reports about like Medicare plans or managed chronic care, not things related to automobile accidents.
Well, the McKinsey documents showed that they were purposely
denying. You think old people don't get hit by cars?
No, hold on.
Do you think that the majority of old people's healthcare coverages have to do with auto accidents?
No, but I think when you make a definitive claim that automobile accidents don't have any influence on whether
is
on
that
Medicare,
what I said? They don't have any influence? I'm saying that the vast majority of what we're talking about is not related to automobile accidents and claims that you make for an injury in an automobile accident.
Can you show evidence for that claim? Any evidence for that claim that the majority of them
Okay. We're
Why are we okaying? He can provide evidence. If I'm supposed to provide evidence, if Soy's supposed to provide evidence,
I will allow him the time to do that if he wishes, but
Sure. So you're asking me what are the majority medical costs for elderly people? Is that what you're asking me?
Majority of the claims through insurance agencies.
Okay.
Stop talking about this. It's so irrelevant.
Okay.
Hypertension was a widely reported condition associated with it. Are they getting hypertension from car accidents? Do you think is high blood pressure?
And specifically, what kind of insurance they're going through initially.
I have an actual interesting kind of way. We are running out of time. I want to put this.
No, wait, hold on, wait. There's more. Wait. You think? Hold on, wait. I just want to get this on. I just want to get this into the record. Hold on, Buckaroo. You think that the majority of old people's medical claims are passing through their automobile insurance insurance first?
No, I don't.
What was the point of the statement that you just made?
To get literally any sort of refutable evidence for any claims that you've made during the whole debate.
Wait, or we can just move on to something completely different. Destiny, do you acknowledge that the McKinsey documents for the automobile insurance intentionally said, let us deny as many missed claims as possible, that's the minor impact soft tissue claims, just because we know that the people who are going through the litigation will not be willing to pay the money for a lawyer because the cost of the claim will be less? Is that
honestly,
a thing that
at
happened?
This point, I don't even trust it without reading it myself. If you want to link me that fucking document, I can read it.
No, I will.
Awesome. It wouldn't surprise me if a consultation company, the some insurance company, did say some scumbag fuck shit. That wouldn't surprise me. So I would grant that. Sure, I'm sure that could happen. Yes.
Okay, and is that tantamount to killing people if they're saying let's us deny these people claims, or not even killing? Let's not go that far. This is causing potentially permanent damage to these people if they do not get the recourse they need within the 3 months period after having that whiplash. This is also known as whiplash. I'll stop saying missed. If they don't get the treatment for that, they will have permanent whiplash injuries from that. Is that a scumfuck thing? Yes. And should that be illegal? And if someone is having
life-threatening injuries, just things that make you uncomfortable?
Well, sure, but have you ever had back pain that's chronic? It's literally I can't think anymore. That's probably why this guy went out and killed this guy.
First of all, you have absolutely no evidence to support that whatsoever. It's
complete speculation. You're right. I've deadlifted wrong before and it hurts like a motherfucker, and I've wanted to kill people. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, but that has nothing to do with him supposedly having chronic pain. Okay, number one.
Well, I'm saying that would radicalize someone. That would cause someone to do and feel immense suffering their whole life just because they're not dying.
Didn't we say that this guy wrote a fucking manifesto and he just didn't include his negative experience with healthcare and surgery in the U.S. when he murders a healthcare exec? Wouldn't we expect to see that somewhere?
Read it again. Maybe.
Okay, number one. That point was so bizarre. Fuck me. I forgot
it wasn't
while
like
you're
serious.
Writing, while you're waiting, I do have a question. I do have a question for your side of things, Soy, and I'll give it to you first. I want to hear everyone else's, because you specifically, Soy, have brought this up several times. That what do you tell people? What do you tell someone who is suffering?
That's the whole argument I'm trying to grant, right? Yeah.
Right. What do you say? What do you say to those people who do you tell them to just wait until things get better? What do you say to them? Well, the question becomes, if we could show, right, and I think that we can, that them going out and gunning down a CEO or graping a CEO or engaging in vigilante action would make it harder for every other person to get the effective change that others are fighting for in a legal manner. do you still just kind of sit back and
Of
let them
course,
do
no,
whatever?
of course not. If it's actually making everything worse, which it absolutely might do, I'm about
It is.
100%
It
concede
is.
that. Yeah, yeah. If it does, if it has them cracked down, they don't
Luigi
change anything.
didn't just not help people, right? He didn't
It made
just
things
not
worse.
do
Yeah,
anything.
sure. And if
He's
we see
making it
that bear out in
actively
the next 2
harder
years, not
for
only will I
everyone.
say that it's like I'm already not condoning it, but I would also say no. You're like I said at the beginning of this. I will concede this is not just you're misinformed.
did raise
This
a-
is you are causing
you
active
did
harm to
raise your
society.
hand
It
when this
shouldn't be
was
done.
justified. You did raise your hand to say, "Is this justified?"
I think
the reason
that's
it's
what I'm
not
saying. I'm
justified,
saying that
and
there's
the reason
a
why we don't do
potentiality.
vigilante, and I'll let you answer after I'm done, please. Right? The reason we don't condone vigilantism, the reason we don't think this is okay, the reason why we don't go down this route is because it makes things harder to do it in the correct way. It makes it less likely that actual change will happen that won't lead to a mass amounts of blood in the streets. If extrajudicial killings are successful and it does lead to change, then that puts a lot of people on the menu and they can say, look, it worked
that's how we
this
used to run
time. Let's
society.
do it a lot more. And I think that leads to more deaths than the insurance companies are.
Right, and I don't
responsible
advocate for that. That is how we used to run societies before we had democracies. That was the compromise, saying like, "Hey, we'll stop going killing our kings. We'll stop killing our union boss. We'll stop killing our boss who's screwing us over." I don't think we should go back to that. I don't think that would be good, and I don't think that this is the way that we need to have it happen. But I am saying that there are justifiable ways that this could bear out, and these people who are suffering and have no recourse. The whole point of my argument is that what are these people else supposed to do? Like, what could they possibly? I almost put on my video.
I don't
what
know,
if
but
they
not
have
that.
Sure. And I was like, what if they, like Destiny brought up the self-immolation and how that like got not talked about a month later. And it could be the exact same case here where it hasn't even been a month yet. We're not going to be talking about this guy 3 months from now. Who knows?
You're talking about killing people for lack of like positive resources. Like, bro, are we like, we're going to be killing store owners for not giving us food. We can kill a realtor for not giving us a house. If we're homeless, we could kill,
Again, I'm not justifying it. I'm saying, what do you tell the people that are suffering?
Well,
Tough shit. I mean, like, there's some degree of suffering.
I
You're
can
saying that
kill
any
the
amount
people
of
who don't
suffering
super
is.
chat to me.
You're saying that any
No,
amount of
I mean the
suffering
people that are
is
going through chronic pain and death, like from denial, which you don't think is happening, but just assume it is, just for that specific point.
If you assume away the hard part, then I guess, yeah, you like literally, I guess almost everything's on the table. If you're going to die, sure. But
okay. But I guess, but if it's not happening, then it doesn't matter. But yeah, okay. That's kind of my point. I'm like, what else are you supposed to tell them? That's like, hey, I'm going to die in a month because I'm being denied care. What the fuck am I supposed to do? This guy's getting away with literally murdering me. Like, what do you tell that person?
yeah, but
that's
this type of care, like death is that's not even legal to deny. Even the hospital can't deny if that's like a thing that you're facing. If you're like going to die in a month, like even the hospital has to treat you at that point.
Well, I guess that's also supplanting the idea. That's probably not the right word, but like a lot of people, like we said, like might be afraid to even go to the doctor because of fear of going bankrupt. A lot of people we don't even know that they're denied care. They just get the, like, hey, we rejected your claim. And then they don't pursue anything further because they don't know that they're owed more. And then they don't go further from that because they don't want to pay out more. Like but again, that's not, I don't have data to back that up. The data doesn't exist. So I won't even.
So all
think
these
this
are
is like-
information problems that are exacerbated by propaganda that suggests that if you go through these things, you're going to go bankrupt, right? So what we could do to solve those is to solve the information problem by more widely distributing accurate facts about the healthcare system rather than propagandizing people.
How responsible are the
right?
people spreading that misinformation? So they're making it an exasperating, you know the word I'm talking about, right? They're blowing up and blowing out of proportion this idea that it's so hard to get an ambulance, or it's going to cost you, it's going to make you go bankrupt. And so because of all this misinformation out there, people choose not to engage in these services. It leads to worse health conditions that eventually affects their quality of life and they die. Are the people spreading that misinformation on the list? They've directly led to harm and death.
Misinformation is incorrect because it's an accumulation of different anecdotes that people are experiencing, and that goes to the corrosion of social trust that we actually penalize financially, as described earlier. They are further removed. They're less proximate to the evil and the corrosive nature of their misinformation than the people who are causing it to begin with, by not publishing their numbers, not making them accessible, publishing them in a way that makes them a little bit more difficult to read, we could say, or making them unclear. What is a closed case versus an appealed case versus a denied case versus settled case? Like if we don't have consistent standards for these, we should be looking at the health insurance companies instead.
Okay. Gang,
But
I
I got to
do-
jump in because I've been waiter. My hand is getting cold.
I know we'll get to you and we'll give you a word here, but I'm just saying we're going to go to Ash and then we are going to go to closing statements. I want to respect everyone's time. If you guys want to call in and stay after, by all means, right? But I do want to allow an escape to those who wish to do so. So Ash, you've had your hand up. Give us your point. Then we'll get
Yeah,
to.
I just want to go over. I'm excited about the upcoming destruction of the Affordable Care Act. I think it's been horrific to the American healthcare industry by incentivizing healthcare companies to stop driving down costs, which they used to devote a fair amount of their time to, was driving down costs. But if they drive down the cost of a claim by negotiating with with a healthcare provider, then that decreases that eats up administrative costs, but also means that their ratio gets thrown off in a different direction, so that now their payouts look lower, and they've just eaten up a bunch of administrative costs. So now they have to make up for that in other ways that might not be appropriate. So their incentives right now are to offer settlements, are to delay, deny, and defend up until the end of the year. And then if they are a little bit over, they can offer some rebates. That's all I'm saying is like, hey, these people have the means, they have the motive, and they have the opportunity. I don't necessarily know if they're actually doing it, but I have a lot of claims that they're actually doing it. And I see a healthcare industry that's protected from exposing themselves to any potential wrongdoing, which is why, as I said at the beginning, it's leverage. Hey, if you guys are doing wrong, then the first person to defect is, I think, going to have some kind of protection. If you guys are not doing wrong, then you have even more incentive to publish your numbers in a transparent, accurate, and clear way so that people understand exactly how their claims are getting denied, because if they're different all over the place. Kaiser has a stupidly low appealed claims rate. I think it's like 0.2% or something like that. But Kaiser itself has like a very vertically integrated health insurance claim. You're mostly interacting within your own network, and it seems like a very solid system from the inside. So I have no reason to suspect Kaiser of wrongdoing, just looking from the outside in at that one statistic,
Yeah, but
we
that's
don't
just
know.
this has to do with like what is your engagement with the healthcare system? Like the fact that you just said that it seems great because of that. Have you ever known somebody who needs to pursue either a specialist or go to a doctor that can prescribe something or recommend you something who's out of network? Because some
3 people.
companies, like with Kaiser, that could be a fucking nightmare. So even
Yeah.
though they have a low denial rate, that's not necessarily a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Just
Totally
none of these
agree.
things in a
That's why I
vacuum
made the
are
point that we need it to be as transparent as possible. And
sure.
this
And if you
provides
if you want to demand like
to answer your
maximum
question that you asked me
transparency,
just a moment ago, my father died of melanoma skin cancer. My mother has had the mini Whipple surgery. She had basically a benign tumor that was, well, a precancerous tumor on her pancreas that had also spread to, I believe her gallbladder was removed, or a piece of her gallbladder. I don't remember the exact distinction between the Whipple surgery and the mini Whipple. That led to some medical malpractice where a mesh was left inside of her body and went undetected for several years afterwards and caused her quite a few problems. She actually went into sepsis several different times. I'm currently waiting on a specialist for a GI problem because my grandfather died of colon cancer. My mother had cancer. My father died of cancer. So I'm waiting on that specialist now. I interact with it. I'm a young person, and these kinds of problems uh, engender fear that I try to discourage in my friends. But again, it's socially corrosive. So we want to solve that problem as quickly as possible. And if we encourage people who are doing wrong to say, hey, defect ASAP and we will bring you into the fold of our protection, then that's great. If they're not doing any wrong, then they should admit it.
sure.
And prove it ASAP.
How liable do you hold like hospitals or healthcare providers versus insurance companies?
Very, very. This is where I just differ from the rest of the panel. Do you remember the anesthesia? I wish we had gotten to this earlier.
I know
but
the
do you remember
anesthesia thing.
anesthesia
Yes,
thing?
yeah, I'm aware of
Okay.
the craziness of all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was okay. It was completely justified on the part of the insurance companies to start going after these anesthesia providers because they're manufactured in these 500 milligram vials, I believe, which is something like 10 doses, perhaps, conservative estimate. But you have to throw away the entire dose, I believe, partially because of hospital policy, but also because of
Yeah,
It was
there's a lot
described
of
to me
I
last
guess
night at the
there's a
OSHA.
lot of there's a lot of dumb shit with that. I guess
Yeah.
one of the things when we talk about like increased transparency, sometimes governments will provide a little bit more protection towards companies that are complying in heavily regulated environments. It's why I believe I don't think it was just the vaccines. I think that for FDA regulated drugs, assuming you follow the regulatory process, you did everything well. If something pops up and you like were following the process the whole time, it's very hard to hold these companies liable because they're following such a regulated process. And the argument would be, well, if something happens that's bad, then the government should regulate it differently. If we're arguing that we need way more transparency so that the coverage rates go up massively or something like that, then one of two things will happen. One, either the cost for these premiums is going to skyrocket because there's way more cost in the system now for people covering everything. Or two, healthcare providers are just going to say, fuck it, I just don't take these types of like Medicare plans because the government pay rates for these things are fucking dog shit. And a lot of these people only accept people like Medicare or Medicaid patients because they have people with a private insurance where the insurance companies compensate the healthcare providers way more. Which again, to be clear, I'm not arguing one way or another in favor of insurance or not in favor of insurance or whatever. I'm just saying that I feel like Americans have this bad thought sometimes that everything is fucked and that we just do one thing, we can fix everything. But you have to understand that the implementation of some things you're asking for are going to cause necessarily some decrease somewhere in the system, whether it's by speed or choice or access to certain types of like drugs or procedures, that like something has to give somewhere. We can't just have everything at less cost.
I'll give you an
and
example right now. One of the regulations that goes into not reusing a vial, such that if you use one dose of ketamine, we have to throw out the other 9, is an OSHA regulation because basically saying that like, hey, we can't reuse these saline bags, we can't reuse anything that we inject intravenously, I believe, anything that we inject even with a hypodermic needle. There's a possibility that some bacteria could get on it and go to somebody else, so we have to throw it out. I would be happy with an America where you could opt in to slightly that extra 1% risk to cut your healthcare costs by 90% or whatever it would happen to be, right? That would be a beautiful America to live in. We can't live in that America because the government says no.
Okay.
And the government says no to a lot of different places, but yes, it would require systemic change. I think we have a little bit more leverage on the conversation now because people who lobby regularly to make it worse are now afraid for their lives, even when they're doing okay.
Here's the order of operations, gang. It's been a robust discussion, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, but some productivity in there. Well, and I appreciate that. I'm going to give each of these lovely individuals, and thank you all for coming. Closing thoughts, closing statements, tell people where they can find you. I have links to all of their stuff in my YouTube description. They have provided me links. I have pasted them for there. So check them out. They have spent their Sunday evening with me, so give them a follow if you can. But yeah, we'll stay for as long as you guys want afterwards for the after show. Dev's wanting in. He's got some issues with you, Soy Pill, and some others. But yeah, you guys can stay if you like. If you need to go, that's fine. Let's start with Ukerist and we'll end with Destiny. Ukerist, give us your closing thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note. We sometimes forget this, but we live in an era of relative peace in the United States from political violence. So, for example, in the 1970s, according to FBI statistics, there was an 18-month period where we averaged 5 political bombings a day in the United States. At the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s, you had labor disputes that led to dozens of people dying in dust-ups between striking laborers and the enforcement workers that were brought in to fight with them. Right, so we are blessed, I think, in a lot of ways, and we should oppose things that agitate for a world where things like the Luigi incident become the new normal, especially when we have avenues to resolve problems that we might think exist. So again, I would recommend to all of you, there's a great ProPublica series on healthcare insurance claim denials. You can learn some of the data that we have about it. You can learn some of the policies that are affecting it, and you can argue for avenues that will defeat it. I think if the things that people who are pro Luigi are alleging are true, that Thompson and UHC are guilty of fraud and can be sued and potentially prosecuted on that basis. And so you should do that instead of gunning down people in the streets. I did not hear any satisfying answers tonight on where this principle stops, which sorts of C-level executives can or can't be shot, or people below them can or can't be shot. And so I see no reason to come away from this agreeing more with the people who are more in favor of Luigi than I am. Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't really stream. I blog sometimes on Substack. It's everythingwasbeautiful.substack.com. If you want to subscribe, it's free.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Soy Pill, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean this unironically. I do want to apologize to the audience, like if I haven't properly established, because it sounds like a lot of people don't properly think that what I believe is happening with the health insurance industry or the audio insurance industry or any insurance industry is happening to a
Jesse,
point that is bad.
Jesse Bear.
Uh, you're unmuted. I
I'm
think you're talking
sorry.
about your cat. No,
I'm
you're good.
yelling to my cat. I'm sorry.
But like genuinely, I mean, it seems that I established that if all those things were happening, there could be, it's all you can really say to the people that are suffering from it is tough shit. I don't think that's an acceptable answer. That doesn't mean I think they should go out and kill people, but it's kind of a no-win situation for those people, and it's hard for me to say that they don't like it, that they're not rightfully justified in their own thinking to say, well, if I can't have any other recourse, I'm going to go out and do something. But clearly, I haven't established that. Now, it sounds to me like Destiny said he would agree. Were that all true to a point, which makes me just want to try to prove it better and more. And I hope that at some point you'll let me speak and try to present a better argument to you, because after reading this book, I do want to go out in the street and protests within the confines of the law. Wick, thank you for putting it together. Thanks everyone for being here. Professor, sorry we didn't get to the really moral argument because we got stuck on the other stuff. And I could pretend like I'm above this, but Destiny, I really like your stuff. I've been watching you for 7 years. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. You're always raising the bar. I mean, I've heard that your leaked tapes weren't that good, but you just glazed the shit out of Brian Thompson. So clearly you're always doing better. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
His links are in the YouTube description. Check them out. Ash, go ahead. You're muted. We can't hear you.
I feel like I emptied my own tank a little while ago. Sorry. So again, my argument differs from my colleagues here a little bit. Again, I think that we have a reasonable suspicion that something could be going wrong from people who have the means, motive, and opportunity. And again, I focus particularly heavily on the motive. And I think more importantly, their incentives to do right by their customers have actually been diminished by the Affordable Care Act. So again, I think that this provides us with some leverage. I don't think that it should continue. I hope it stops as soon as possible on both sides to the degree that it's actually happening. But again, I'm not going to weep or cry if somebody's suspected of wrongdoing and they obfuscate and lobby to obfuscate their potential wrongdoing in the face of everything else. Then I'm just not that upset about it. But I will be around for questions afterwards if Wick will have me. And also, I have a link in the chat. If you think I'm wrong about this, I have a Kickstarter coming up that was prototyped yesterday for a game, Papers, Please style game. We'll be calling it Affordable Care, in which you'll play a claims adjuster who is trying to avoid getting shot while also making a profit in a pre-ACA and a post-ACA world. And I will do my best to model that appropriately and, respectfully of everybody's wishes. If you have a nasty healthcare story, please DM me with it if you'd like to be featured.
Gang, check them
You
out.
fill out the form to be notified in the comments.
Links in the comments. Links in the comments, gang. Buckaroo, go ahead.
As I explained before, I think there are nuances within healthcare and how insurance companies use wrongful or outright fraudulent claim denials as a means of generating profit. Clearly expressed in this debate, a lot of people have massive misunderstandings or outright misinformation about the insurance industry. This results in an increased likelihood of bad faith interpretations of policies utilized by companies, as explained in the McKinsey and Company files released by Allstate. Only after using those same outlined tactics, delay, deny, defend, to avoid responsibility for the few cases their claimants can afford to take to court. When this game, as they refer to it, is played with the peace of mind and health of an individual, it results in some pretty unhappy people. The ethics and advocacy for transparency, universal health care, vigilante justice aside, it's simple as fuck around and find out.
Okay, their links are in my description. Thanks for being here. Last but certainly not least, Destiny, what are your thoughts?
I think I agree mostly with the pro Luigi people. I've had a lot of trouble recently with my Allstate insurance because they are not covering my Vyvanse for some reason. I keep going to the pharmacy telling them that Allstate is supposed to cover it, and they say, no, sorry, that's fucking car insurance. And then I keep screaming third-party liability at them over and over again, but for some reason they're not buying drugs from me. I don't really know why. But other than that, I think that it's very funny to me that people who are literally against the death penalty, they're against the death penalty for people convicted of crimes beyond a reasonable doubt in front of a jury of their peers because they're so worried that some innocent people, and they are convicted and then sentenced to death, are somehow okay with vigilantism when it relates to a system that's so complicated that few people, even those working in healthcare, like barely understand. Like, it's funny that if you go into like the far ends of like weird, like evolutionary biology, theoretical physics, like all these crazy, whatever, like hard science things, like even those people seem like they have a better handle than when you talk about healthcare, because it is an incredibly complicated system. And even when you talk to people that are really deep into the insurance stuff, into the providing stuff, like even those people are like, why is it so expensive in the US? It's really fucking hard to say, because there's like 50 million variables that are pushing against 50 million other variables at literally every single point in time. And it's hard to quantify literally anything. And a lot of these things are sensitive to different changes, and who the fuck knows like what's actually going on. So the idea that we're somehow comfortable enough to say that like, yeah, we can probably kill somebody, you know, here, but we're not okay to do the death penalty because there might be somebody who's convicted beyond a reasonable doubt in a court is wholly and completely and totally inconsistent to me. It's stupid. And at the end of the day, and I'll stake my reputation on my nose, nothing is changing from the health insurance industry, or nothing is changing from healthcare at the end of this, because some fucking rich white loser fuck decided to off some health insurance exec because he wanted attention, or because he was mentally ill, or because he spent too much time on Twitter.
Too much time on Twitter has been the death of us all. Okay, well, thanks for being here, gang. If you've enjoyed this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We do shows like this as much as we possibly can. Again, if you guys want to stay for some callers, that's cool. If you need to go, I understand.
I just also really quick want to say thank you to Wick and everybody else who participated.
Absolutely. No,
I
thank
want
you
to say
guys for
Wick is
hanging
the
out.
worst. Enough.
It's true.
No.
I am.
Well, like Destiny's donators said, Wick is a stinky butt. Okay,
Stinky.
100%.
it wasn't
Very
me.
interesting debating politics with Philip, because normally we're arguing about much more important things like Dungeons
D&D.
and Dragons.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
you have the
I want to
complete wrong-
give I want to give some space to some of the new people on here to get some of their thoughts. Short Fat Otaku, then Friendly. Short Fat Otaku, give us what you thought. You were screaming in my chat, and now's your chance.
A little bit, yes, a little bit. There was one avenue that you guys kind of went down, but then kind of stopped going down it. I'm just a bit curious about it. I forget who it was, but someone brought up the banality of evil.
That was Professor.
Oh, okay, yes.
Although
the idea there,
he's quoting my essay, sorry. So both of us really, yeah, go on.
right. So the idea there is that responsibility is abstracted away from individuals, because you have people who are not intentionally evil, but they're still doing evil actions. And that's why you have the example of the Nazi prison guard, or the guy who's just filing paperwork, right? So the question I have is, how far does that principle extend, right? Like, do you want to shoot people who peddle vices because vices destroy people's lives, right?
Yeah, no, this is a good question. So I said this in my video. Well, sorry, I'm assuming you're asking me because I was one of the ones who brought it up.
I'm asking everyone, basically, yeah.
Sure, sorry, I'm already going. So what I said in my video. So my video was actually saying I don't think it's good that we are killing people. I think that reformative justice is preferred. That's why I don't believe in the death penalty, like Destiny brought up. I think that these people could probably be shown the evil of their actions potentially if they saw like the harm they're causing directly, even though they know it's happening. It's very, very, very nebulous. It's disassociated. They're not seeing the direct actions, and I think that would be a better way to try to reform people like this. The difference in the banality of evil is that Adolf Eichmann, the guy who was orchestrating the trains to Auschwitz and all that, went to visit the camps. He saw Jews being murdered, and he's quoted as saying, "I will go into my grave smiling because I have 5 million Jews' deaths on my hands." So like he had no remorse, and I think that when they executed him in Israel or whatever, that's probably potentially, I'd say that's probably justified. Like he literally just completely unreformable, did not feel sorry at all. But I don't think that Brian Thompson is unreformable. Well, he is now, but in concept. So.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to him, like knowing what's going on and then saying, I don't care. But I mean, the example of the banality of evil that's usually brought up is of the person who doesn't know what's going on, or who is willfully blind to it, where like he could know, but he decides not to look at it. So like, let's say you have the CEO of a company that sells cigarettes, right? And cigarettes kills people like crazy. Do you want to shoot him? Like,
do I want to? I mean,
well, would it be okay if you did, in the same way that it's like,
no,
kind of passable?
I don't want to live in a world where that's the way we solve things, but at the same time, like I guess it's also a completely different argument, because cigarettes, they're addictive. Yeah, you could argue same with gambling. Like people are coerced into this, but people have to make that initial jump to starting that, and it's a lot harder to place the blame versus someone like directly denying you care or something. Which again, even then, I don't necessarily agree with shooting him. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
Well, because then you can also extend it to like, well, what about voting, right? Because if we're gonna go down the road of even abstracted responsibility
Yeah.
should have direct consequences. Like, well, if you vote for the wrong guy and that guy does something terrible, should you get shot for that? Like, I think no.
Oh, no, no,
You
no.
know,
What if
But
you
I was
attend
going to
their
say,
rallies?
Ridiculous, and it's something I didn't get to disagree with my colleagues here earlier on, is responsibility. So responsibility has like these two different aspects where it's like, all right, what did you do? And then what was the context in which you did it? Obviously, I'm not saying anything special there. If the incentives were set up for you to do something harmful to somebody else, I'm going to look at your proxy. I'm going to look at your amount of agency. I'm going to try to put a price on your agency and how much authority you had over that situation and what you could have done theoretically to stop it and change the outcome in a meaningful way. And in cases like that, I am going to look further up the chain because as you go up the chain, generally speaking, that involves people, that's going to involve
What's the
people who have
lowest
more
rung
power
on
to.
that chain that
What's
you're
up?
like, okay, I understand. The lowest
Wait,
rung
I
on
think
that chain.
I think real quick, just echoing what Ash said, this is whether we know it or not intuitively. This is what we all feel, and it's true to a large extent. When you think about evil and when you think about good, okay, when you think about morality, one of the big challenges to people that believe in determinism and why we have things like compatibilism is because to assign people or to ascribe malice or evil to some extent to somebody's actions, we have to first give them some level of agency. There's a reason why we don't say that a tree that falls on us acted evilly. It's because the tree couldn't have done anything differently, right? It's why a socialist will say there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, is because the idea might be that a person is so enslaved to the system that it's not like they could do anything regardless. So when you're going after people that are on these rungs of the ladder that are so far low, it's like hard to say like, well, would the expectation ordinarily be for a human to suicide themselves to fight against some system? And then also, like, shouldn't we have some trust that the system we're operating in resembles the laws of society such that if we operate within the bounds of those laws, we're ensured like some level of protection by the state? Like, even if they might be doing things that are somewhat questionable, because I mean, what are we as citizens of a state with some negative freedoms guaranteed to us, if not the freedom from, like harm against our person, like, and we believe in this so strongly that even if we do decide that something is illegal, you can't make something illegal and then retroactively prosecute people for it. Let's say we decide tomorrow that veganism is the new law of the land. You can't prosecute people who had broken a law that was just made illegal. That's how strongly we feel about this principle. So the idea that you might be acting fully within the bounds of society, and some people in society might reasonably disagree about the amount of harm you're causing, which is fair, they can have that disagreement, but part of the agreement of living in a society with a functioning judicial system is the idea that, like, even though some people disagree, we're going to all play by these rules. And vigilantism is basically a statement saying society has failed to such an egregious extent that I have to take the law into my own hands. And like in a failed state, like, I can understand it, but I don't think we're anywhere near that point yet.
Yeah, there's
I
something
said
I wanted
earlier,
to
it's a
bring
referendum
up.
on. Oh, sorry. Go
Yeah, I
ahead,
want to
Phil.
hear what Ukerist says, then you can go.
Yeah, I need to pop off. Thank you for having me, Wick.
Yeah.
But there was something I was going to bring up earlier. It didn't really become relevant, but there's a really great article at the Daily News, which is like a philosophy website. A philosopher wrote this article on this topic specifically, and he concedes most of the arguments that the pro-Luigi people are making. His three claims that he concedes are: UHC systematically defrauded its policyholders by refusing to cover contractually obligated medically necessary treatments. Failing to prevent harms resulting from refusing to cover medically necessary treatments is as or almost as wrong as causing those harms. And Brian Thompson, the CEO, specifically exacerbated those harms in his 10 years as CEO. He concedes all of those, and he still makes the moral case that even if you concede those, that you should not kill this guy because of exactly what Destiny was saying. He makes a sort of Lockean social contract kind of argument that, like, what we do in a state is we've ceded some of our rights to avenge ourselves to an institutional body that rectifies these disputes. If these things are true, he's committed crimes, or maybe he's civilly liable for things, and we should prosecute him through the ordinary channels. But the claim that he makes that I think is the most salient, or the most punchy, I guess, is that I personally do not trust armed Americans acting privately to determine which CEOs should be killed and which should be allowed to live, especially in a social environment where misinformation is rampant. It's not hard to imagine a future in which private citizens begin assassinating academics they view as a danger or harm to society. I think he makes a very powerful case throughout.
Or podcasters, or all sorts of different industries.
Exactly.
Right?
So I think he makes a very good case here. I'll share it in the group chat and in the general chat and stuff in Wick's channel, but I think it's a good article, and I think it goes to Destiny's point. And so, yeah, that's basically my position as well.
Sure. Thanks for being here, buddy. Really
Yep. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Yep, I love you guys
Thanks for
too. I
coming.
gotta take out, so be
I'll
careful.
see you guys
I love
later.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Yes, hanging out.
Okay, so is there Yeah, the soy pill, right? Like this idea
me.
of what we should tell people, right, who are suffering and who have things that they feel that they have no recourse. They have been wronged. Someone has done something wrong to them, and I'll just cede your point for the matter that I'm sure that there are people who have been fucked over, right? Still, even in that case, you tell people that going around outside of the system to kill others or to grape them or to do harm to them is wrong. It's morally wrong.
Right. So that was like the whole crux of my argument
Mm.
was I think it's cruel for me to say that to them because they are just watching injustice happen to them and essentially have to martyr themselves into
What
like,
does
you know, hey, like
cruelty have to do with whether or not they should or should not do something?
no, exactly. Like I don't want to live in the world where this is done all the time, so they still shouldn't do it. But it's like I'm at a loss of if I'm talking to someone who is personally affected by this, what the hell are they supposed to tell them? Tough shit, which is essentially what Destiny said, and I guess that's all we can do. But what I was saying is, until I know that there's a better thing to tell them, like, hey, actually, there's this very good way to change the system radically fast. Then when people go out and do this, I'm not going to be surprised. Like Destiny said, if it's a failed state, then that's when vigilantism becomes a lot more justified because there's no other recourse. And what I'm saying is for some of these individuals, it is a failed state for them. They are getting denied care that is keeping them alive. So it's like, okay, like I'm getting killed by the policies of this company. What the fuck am I supposed to do? That's the whole point I was trying to make. It's not about whether or not I personally think it's okay or whether I don't think it's good that those people are in that situation, and I think it should be reformed.
Killing someone doesn't give them the healthcare they need.
Yes, for
right?
Luigi,
it just
it is
doesn't.
vengeance. Yeah, right. Because for Luigi's like vengeance, right? Killing him didn't solve his back problems. Killing him didn't get him his money back if he was denied a claim. It wasn't even his healthcare CEO. But if this does send a message for the people that are suffering, if this does somehow spark the conversation that healthcare needs to have, because we were not talking about it to this extent before, and it's only getting worse under a Trump admin, then maybe things will change. I'm not saying they will, and if they don't, I wouldn't be surprised. And that's further justification for not doing this.
We haven't been talking about it recently, but we have had whole election cycles dedicated to healthcare.
And what happened? We're still here, right? Like it's not where it needs to be.
We had the Affordable Care Act. We've had a lot of different regulations and reforms that have arguably made things better.
Made things a billion times worse. The Affordable Care Act was the most destructive policy, shooting my health insurance premiums up overnight and sending the IRS after me if I don't buy health insurance as a healthy young man. It's completely absurd. This is the thing. So that's where I come down on the pro-Luigi side is like, I'm sorry that your state-appointed cartel got you killed. If you didn't want to accept that hazard, you shouldn't be in the risk industry.
Okay.
He's in the same boat as any kind of general, as any kind of tax collector, any agent of the IRS, any DEA agent.
Do you think tax collectors should be killed?
I never said that. I said he's in the same boat.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, gang.
I would never say that.
I understand.
Oh, I do have another question.
Please.
Are you signing off?
I could do one more question and then I gotta go too. So
then a lot of people have to
okay. And yeah, I have like 10 minutes left or so.
I'm here. If you guys want to go down to debate thing or whatever after the stream ends, I'll be there.
Give us your question.
I lost it. Give me 30 seconds.
Okay, we'll get there.
You have 25.
Gang, don't you like this kind of show, right? Do you enjoy this kind of show?
Look, I had a great
like
time.
button,
This is awesome.
Hit the subscribe. While you're looking out, let me read these super chats, actually. $5 from Jav Tondez. I wonder if people are defending this guy would be singing the same tune if a politician of their liking got the Luigi treatment for similar reasons. 10.
If a politician I liked was denying people care to the extent to which I believe it's happening, then I would also not be super sad about it.
Rayval, and let me lightning round these and we can respond. Rayval for 10 Canadian. TPL covers damage to another vehicle for property from a claim, i.e. if you hit a fire hydrant with your car and it floods building, your TPL coverage provides money to the damage to the building. $20 more from Rayval. The communist arguing against Destiny doesn't know this industry, doesn't know how policies, claims, coverage, deductibles, or companies work, and couldn't even tell you who they have their own insurance through. $5 from Nanoan. I hope insurance companies raise insurance costs to pay for security and compensate the potential dangers of being a CEO. LMAO. $20 from Lawson Harrison. The overuse of healthcare has to stop, and if that means insurers mowing down dipshit claims, they have my blessing. $5 from Portland is burning. If healthcare execs are a fair target for violence because they profit from human suffering, what about alcohol, tobacco execs, weapons manufacturers? $2 from Jav Tondez. Wick, read my previous super chat. Okay. And then $10 from Symposium Brain says, you let him talk over my last dono. Why would it be wrong for Melina to physically attack Destiny for sharing her sex tapes without her consent? She had no legal recourse. Why platforming?
I don't know if you should read those ones, although I was the one who made a joke about it at the end, so.
I mean, they pay me money to read them. If they wanted to say all sorts of bullshit, they could. I mean, it's silly, but go ahead.
Sure.
That was
What's your
much more
question?
than 30 seconds.
So
Hope you have
you
a
mentioned you seem like you're almost kind of apathetic to it, where you recognize that it's bad, but it's not that big of a deal because he was
It
the
depends
healthcare
on what
CEO when it
happens, right?
comes.
Like if this
Yeah.
turns into lots of people doing this, no change happening, and it just increases violence and distrust, and then I would be very much more against it. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's good, but at the same time, this is like part of a buildup against a whole system. We got super focused on healthcare, which is pertinent to the conversation. I don't disagree, but like, especially all the young people who maybe are delusional, are seeing CEO executives destroying things with oil leaks, and all the bombing in the Middle East, and then from Northrop Grumman and BlackRock, and all this shit happening. And all we've heard our whole lives, for the most part, is these people are untouchable. You can't do anything about it. Some guy says, "Hey, actually, no." So a lot of people are like, "Oh wow, okay, like maybe this doesn't change anything." But yeah, finally someone says, "Go fuck yourself," like to the people that are doing this to us every day that we can do nothing about. There's like, we vote and we make incremental changes, and like I said, I'm still a believer that this could happen incrementally. If I didn't, I might be out like doing some more crazy shit, but I'm not, because I believe, like, if we can get Trump twice, which is fucking insane, like no one would have believed you in 2015, then we can get a Bernie Sanders, we can get an OSC. I believe it can happen. Please let it happen, because like this needs to change. I believe we can change it. But for the people that are today have nothing to do, how do I tell them, oh yeah, just wait, you're gonna have to die, you're the front lines of this fight, and there's nothing you can do about it? Like, it's so hard for me to say that, because it's like, well, what the fuck? Like, I wouldn't want to hear that shit. If someone was stabbing my wife right now and they said, hey, I'm gonna vote for someone that's gonna make stabbing illegal in 5 years, great. Like, what the fuck? Like, I want to go kill someone. So I get it, but I still don't condone it.
Okay, I mean that's not quite where I was going with that, but that's fine.
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted.
My question basically is, since you do kind of have this attitude of, you're a bit apathetic towards it, which that's fine, I guess. I'm just kind of curious, like, if hypothetically it's your friend who's denied care, and your friend kills the CEO, and then your friend like comes over to your house and wants to hide out in your basement, and because you have just the power of precognition here, that if he hid in your basement, he would get away with it. Would you let him hide in the basement?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I don't want to.
Turn him in? Would you call the cops up?
I would call the cops. I would turn them in, because it's one of those things. Like, now it's my turn to fucking deep throat the boot. But like, I don't want to live in a world where that happens. I don't want to live in a world where that friend now feels justified in doing that to anyone. And I don't believe that killing Brian Thompson was the right thing to do. Maybe he was like a Adolf Eichmann, and he didn't have any remorse for all the people's lives who he fucked over, if you believe he's even doing that. But I just don't think that's good. I don't think that's how we should do justice. I think that people are capable of change, and especially people who are so far removed from the direct consequences of the negative actions they do. I think they need to be shown the error of their ways, and maybe use that power to like do good in the world. And I just don't think it's like, yeah, sure, I understand the sentiment behind trying to like do violence to these people. I just don't think we should. Like, I don't want to live in that world. And I think there's a lot of leftists who are very pro killing him right now that I believe in reformative justice, and it just it doesn't. It is kind of like, it doesn't.
Well,
make
they
sense.
don't
It seems like
actually believe in performative justice. Then, right?
I guess not. And I unironically do. So like, yeah, call me a bootlicker if you want, but like, I don't think we should go out and kill these people. I think it's hard to justify anything else. But like, yeah, like I said, I tried to mention this debate. I don't know, maybe like pry their eyes open, put a bunch of Clockwork Orange monitors in front of them, and force them to watch a bunch of people like getting denied healthcare and dying. And then they're like, oh shit, this is me, I'm doing this. Maybe they'll change. I don't know. But I'm not saying kidnap them, because that would be illegal. But like, something else can happen. There's a very extreme part of this that we're going to, which is murder. And I don't think that's the last recourse that should happen right now. I just think a lot of people feel that way, and I don't know how else to rectify their woes.
Okay. Well, gang, this has been fun. Any more questions, SFO? Otherwise, we're gonna.
Nope, I've got to go. It's time for me. I'll see you later, man.
I'll see you guys
later. Thank you so much, Wick.
Thanks for
having me. I
tuning
really
in, gang. Next show's gonna be tomorrow. I'm not sure what it's gonna be about yet. Maybe we'll
I mean,
just
am I
pause.
being
We'll do
invited
something
to next show?
on Wednesday. On Wednesday, just let me get through this. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about the HB1 visa debate, MAGA on MAGA violence. It was fun, Elon versus Twitter. So tune in for that. We got some great guests, Econo Boys coming on. We got a few others coming on. It should be fun. On Thursday, we're going to have a one-on-one debate. We're going to have it between Portland is Burning and Quibbles Over Coffee. That should be fun, too. Take care. Thank you all.
Is the debate on coffee?
No, the debate will be on whether it's homophobic for women not to date bisexual men.
Ooh.
All right.
So,
I gotta go. Bye,
yeah,
guys.
I'll see
Thank
you
you
guys
so
later.
much.
I will be in debates.
Bye, bye, bye.
Goodbye.